Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow underway from 6th and Peabody. The Monday edition is here across the OutKick network, YouTube, and online at outkick.com. Alongside Chad Withrow, I'm Jonathan Hutton. Bobby Carpenter joins us in 20 minutes. Big college football headlines to discuss. Charlie Arnold from outkick.com with us coming up in about an hour and 15 minutes from now. The very special guest, Charlie Arnold. Looking forward to that. Plus Skip Holtz in hour number 3, former Division I college football head coach, now back in the USFL playoffs with the Birmingham Stallions. Chad, good afternoon.
Hutton, you know what this show always needed? More balls. And that's what we got in front of us right now on this video screen.
Yes,
I don't know if you noticed that. And I just looked up and said, look at that. Finally, everyone gets their wish. This show has more balls. And that's what we got. More balls. They're lighting up in front of us. It's getting me excited. I'm ready to go.
Did we get the U.S. Open this year, this go-around? In totality, I'm sitting there watching the final 4 or 5 holes yesterday. Wyndham Clark, props, congratulations, the most consistent from Thursday through Sunday. And he wins at 10 under. But I'm sitting there going, man, I feel like over the last 3.5 days, and I spent a lot of time watching this with my dad over the Father's Day weekend, I was almost having to hype myself into the fact that, yeah, this is the U.S. Open. This is it. And it hit me. I really never felt like it was based on the low scores on Thursday and Friday. The course was set up to go low. And not just score and grab some headlines, but like all-time records fell. Johnny Miller's 50-year record of the lowest score at a U.S. Open at 63 shattered because not one but 2 players shot 62 on Thursday. Another player in the tournament shot 63. And this is supposed to be the toughest test in golf. And I think things evened out over the course of the weekend. But I felt like Los Angeles Country Club, the atmosphere was really bad. They were hesitant to even host it for years, and when they finally did, membership bought up most of the tickets, and the 23,000 tickets, 17,000 of them, or 14,000 of them were hospitality only, which are the suites and everything else behind the course. So you had 9,000 general admission, and the energy, the atmosphere just lacked for me. But you had Fowler and Schauffele shooting 62. They overcompensated, I felt like, based on the venue. And the venue didn't allow these players to come in and practice ahead of the week. So you had guys like Rory that were looking up things on YouTube on how to play this course. And I don't know, Chad, guys were 8 under after the first round. 10 under won the tournament. So they did make the course more difficult. I just don't think it felt like the toughest test in golf, considering all things that we are used to seeing. And keep this in mind. When Johnny Miller shot 63 for the all-time lowest score at the Open, only 3 other players broke par that day. And that was a final round 63 for Johnny Miller. Meanwhile, you have a record and a round that is that significant that falls not once but twice on Thursday and ends up down the stretch without a ton of drama, despite Clark nearly giving it away with back-to-back bogeys with 4 holes to play. Are you with me on this? Did you feel like we were watching a major championship?
Yes, yes and no.
I didn't until like 8 o'clock last night, Central, where we were finally seeing the final 4 or 5 holes play out.
Yeah, I would say yes and no. I quadrupled my intake of hearing the term marine layer over the weekend. I can guarantee you that. I'd never heard that more times in my life. And I never knew that a marine layer was some mystical and magical way to just go way below par. When they had the marine layer and the cloud cover and the conditions on Thursday, it unlocked some mystery cheat code for an old video game that we've never seen before on this course. And then the rest of the weekend was like any other U.S. Open where the conditions were a little bit more difficult, the greens were difficult, and the scores leveled out for that reason. Primetime golf is awesome. I really enjoyed the 6 to 8:30 Central Time that I was watching this window last night to take this in. I will still argue, and I know that I'm in the minority, I prefer morning majors more. I love the feeling of a British Open being over at 1 p.m. Central Time or noon and waking up early with the major across the Atlantic when it's the British Open. But this was the next best thing. I enjoyed the primetime element of it. Hutton, this did not, to me, feel as much like a major, and this is no knock on Wyndham Clark, who was great and really showed a lot of courage down the stretch where after he bogeyed the 15th, a hole that no one had bogeyed all day, I thought, well, now the wheels are going to come off, and we're going to see another one of those stories of a guy who's never won a major that still won't win a major because he falls apart late. It didn't feel like a U.S. Open because Rory McIlroy failed us. Again, guy can't hit a putt when it matters. I mean, he had every opportunity to make a run and win a major and end that drought yesterday and could not come up with anything. He was fine. He did well all weekend, did a good job, hit a lot of pars yesterday. But what takes a major from, okay, someone's going to win a major, there's going to be emotion, this is a big moment, this is cool to watch, to memorable,
next
so I'm
level.
not going to forget it, is a showdown involving a superstar of the sport. Well, Rory McIlroy was the superstar of the sport that was right there, 1 or 2 strokes behind throughout the day, and could not muster anything, could not come up with that one big moment and that one huge putt that would have put him dead even against Wyndham Clark and really put some pressure on him. Instead, he just came up completely short again, and this has become the story with Rory McIlroy. So that is what took away from some of it to me. But Wyndham Clark's story is really cool. I love the whole part about, him contemplating leaving the game when he was struggling after his mother passed away from breast cancer when she was 55 and he was in college, battling through that. And now he's a major champion at 29 years old.
First time he's made the cut at the U.S. Open. He's been 0 for 2. He previously at any major had finished no higher than 75th. And he ends up winning against Rory. Rory McIlroy now 19 top 10s in his last 33 majors. But he's still, we've had to wait 9 years, and we'll continue to wait for him to get the next one. So I was driving back home whenever was it the 15 or the 16 bunker fiasco, where they couldn't find his ball in the bunker?
That was, I believe, with Rory, you're saying?
Yeah. That's
I think that was 15.
Because that's where he could do no better than par from that point on. But I felt like that really played a factor. That he buries the ball on the side of the bunker, which is just unfortunate.
But he also got a huge break because if it was in the sand and he lost it, he would have had to take a drop.
Yeah.
But because it was in that, whatever we call that thicket that's above the sand, it got buried in the earth, and he was able to take a club length.
He's about a foot higher on that trajectory, and that ball's rolling to the green. Yeah. And I think the tournament changes from that aspect instead of going to the side of this, what looked like a cliff at Pebble Beach.
It was very British Open looking.
Yes, it was.
The side of that bunker when he was looking for that. There's also, to me, few things more thrilling than a professional golfer in a desperate search for their ball in that 3-minute window where Rory and Scotty Scheffler was helping him, and they are just in a mad dash looking all through the shrubbery,
the mic'd up stuff,
trying to find it. I love watching that.
Chad, I just felt like Los Angeles Country Club didn't want this as much as the USGA did to host it. And they finally did it, and the atmosphere was down. You got multiple Koepka's saying that the atmosphere sucked. It didn't feel like a major championship like we've seen in years past. And low scores aside here, it lacked that feel of the U.S. Open. Let's get back to that and leave the L.A. Country Club to the pretentious that don't want to host us anyway, as far as this is concerned. I was pulling for McIlroy more than Clark. Is that bad for me to admit?
No.
I'm pulling for the guy from Northern Ireland instead of the American in the U.S. Open? I was consciously thinking that, too.
I laid a little money on Wyndham Clark, so I was pulling for him. I normally would pull for the American. But no, I think pulling for a story is very normal.
Well, Fowler was the story, and then Fowler wasn't the story.
Yeah, Fowler quickly faded. He wasn't terrible yesterday, but he just was never going to be in contention. No, I don't think it's weird at all to root for Rory in that situation. I mean, it's been a long time. But you're right. I mean, I can't get here and crush the guy because he's competitive in most of the majors. Yep. He's right there, but he's just not getting it over the hump. And the story is he's not getting those big putts on closeout Sunday when he needs it. And
Clark
it's not like Wyndham Clark.
Putt.
Wyndham Clark birdied the first hole, and that was it. And he was able to win because Rory, par, could not come through with a big putt.
Chad, $3.6 million is what Wyndham Clark wins as the winner of the U.S. Open, his first major victory. But it's estimated he'll take home $1.7 million after federal payroll and state income taxes take into effect. That is quite the haircut on what is a record payout of $3.6 million. Bob Huggins resigns and is retiring from the game of basketball. He's a Naismith Hall of Famer as a coach, over 900 wins, no championships, but long overdue based on the success rate that he's had. But he's resigning after 16 seasons at his alma mater after DUI charges over the weekend. And the details are crazy. He's nearly 3 times the legal limit, driving and gets pulled over. Not pulled over. He's already he has a blown tire. They're trying to get him to the side of the road. He can't maneuver his vehicle with a shredded tire, and doesn't know where he is, doesn't know how he got there, where he was coming from, and he's in Pittsburgh and thinks he's in Columbus. This is the same guy who had the homophobic slurs after a radio interview twice, not once but twice, and West Virginia docked him $1 million pay for the upcoming season, and they moved his contract to year. And within, 2 months, now we see him retiring after what is another incident where it was the final straw.
And didn't he start his night in Ohio at a basketball camp?
No, I believe this took place at 7:30.
Well, he started his day. I feel like I'm reading the story. He was at a basketball camp that day in Northeast Ohio.
But he had a receipt from somewhere at noon or something.
Yeah, but then he went over the Pennsylvania state line and had a receipt. He had a trash can in his car full of beer cans.
Yeah, and bottles
on his drive and bottles, and then was driving, got pulled over in Pittsburgh. I mean, sad story. Honestly, he says in his statement that he's resigning, that he's going to now go get help. And I mean, look, it's not much of a stretch now to say what everybody thought when they heard the audio.
Yeah,
he was drunk in the morning when he said those things.
I thought that too.
It's hard to speculate, but he was slurring his speech when they were asking him the questions, and he was joking and using the homophobic slurs
about the Xavier fan base.
I mean, the guy needs help. He's acknowledging that now, and it seems like he's going to go get that done. 69 years old also for Bob Huggins. I would say this is probably the end of the coaching road for him.
Oh, yeah,
I don't think this is a rehab.
It's being termed as a retirement as well.
Yeah, he said, I'm retiring from West Virginia in his statement.
Yeah.
But, I mean, guys retire and come back. I'm saying I don't see that being a possibility for Huggins.
I don't think so either. And the year-to-year aspect of it, there were many people that thought this was the final year anyway for him at West Virginia. But the Mountaineers stuck by him. You got Morgantown that'll, file you away. He's kind of hidden there. And with this incident piled on to everything that took place live on the radio, where he doubled down on what he said with the radio host there that morning, there was no other choice here.
No other choice, but West Virginia is one of the rare major jobs in a power conference that I feel like you could get away with a lot. And I'm willing to go ahead and say Bob Huggins got away with a lot while he was there. This is not the only occasion. I'm sure something like this has happened. But you can insulate yourself in a place like Morgantown and be protected by the university brass and by fans there, where you can't with some bigger brands across the country. It's a lot more corporate at other jobs. And if you're out seen doing crazy things in your college town, you're probably going to be out of a job. Wasn't the case with Bob Huggins until it was absolutely necessary with this latest news.
I wonder if Ren Baker, who's the AD there, he's already got his list going based on what happened with the Cincinnati radio issues. But how much does Huggins have a say on this next hire?
I would hope none.
There are a lot of coaches that have connections to Huggins that are coming out in support of him, releasing statements, saying things publicly. And I mean, forgive me here, but I'm automatically thinking they're lobbying to take that job.
Well, and I wonder if you do an interim situation, are you too deep into the game now where transfer portal is pretty much done? Your team's there.
Yeah, and the players don't like the decision, by the way.
They don't like it, but that's my point. Do you stay with someone on staff the players know and say, hey, here's your one-year tryout, and then if things are going well, we'll give you a contract extension and stick with an assistant?
Yeah.
Or do you take this as a chance to go poach someone good at a mid-major or someone who's disgruntled somewhere else where you could have some upheaval right now in college basketball? Because West Virginia's a good job. That's a big step up for a lot of coaches in some mid-major spots. Are they going to go get a proven winner at a lower level, or are they going to stick with someone on Huggins' staff? My guess would be they're going to stick with someone on Huggins' staff on an interim basis just to keep the continuity going with this season.
And I think that plays into the theory that it was a one more year type scenario for him anyway, and they had someone waiting in the wings for why they backed him the way they did a month or so ago. Coming up, Bobby Carpenter about to join us. We'll discuss the new scheduling across the top two conferences in college football and the two programs that are significantly better off because of the new scheduling model. It's Penn State and Texas A&M, where high expectations are already there, and now they're rising based on the fact they're not having to chase the teams in front of them every year.
I got to ask, Dustin Johnson feels like to me that a guy that's not serious enough to go out and win on the last couple days. That's how he feels to me. I'm not saying I'm right, but, Speed feels to me like a guy that's going to crap the bed late.
Yeah, he's won the U.S. Open and he's won the Masters, so that kind of crap to the bed that kind of goes out the wind.
Not really. Okay. A couple of years ago, who cares? This is now. This is after he just signed a massive deal. We've seen it in every single sport. Guys sign a massive deal and they don't play nearly as well.
Yeah,
Johnson,
it really is affecting.
Just what I've seen.
Well, it's really affecting Brooks Koepka.
I'm not saying everybody. I said Jesus Christ. God damn. I said we've seen it before. I didn't say every freaking guy. What's wrong? Are we going to have a conversation or are you just going to be an idiot? Which one are you going to be?
No, we're having a conversation.
I'll go either way. I'll go any way you want to go. You want to be an idiot? I can be an idiot. You want to be a human being? We can have a conversation. Which would you like to do?
Well, Dan, I just like to sometimes set the record straight that you can't say when guys get the big money, they don't play well.
Hold on. Then set it straight to me. Set it straight to me what I just said. In some sports, when guys get big money, they don't play well. Some guys, some sports. So set that straight to me.
Give me an example, Dan.
Oh, I'll give you a ton of examples. Every NBA guy, Duncan Robinson was in the last year of his contract. All of a sudden, he played great, got paid $92 million. Hadn't played worth a damn. Julius Randle played great last year of contract. Now he's in another one. Hadn't played great. Different guys do different things. Jalen Brunson gets a big contract, plays great. There's different examples. All I simply said was that Dustin Johnson hasn't, in my opinion, my feel for it, I don't give a shit what he did 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I'm talking about now. All you got to do is respond to that and say, hey, I'm wrong.
You're wrong. Damn. So here's the deal with the LIV guys. Here's the deal with the LIV guys, which is really tricky. This is really, really tricky. So since Dustin Johnson went to LIV, he's been LIV's best player. Now, you could say that is what it is. You could say,
has he not?
I'm sorry?
Koepka has been.
No. I mean, on the LIV tour, Dan.
Oh.
I'm not so that's kind of my point. Just give me 20 seconds to explain here. So Dustin Johnson got the big bag. He went to LIV. On the LIV tour, when they play every 2-3 weeks, Dustin Johnson's been their best player. Dustin Johnson has dominated the LIV tour. Now, He's had a couple chances when he's come to the majors where Koepka has obviously really shines, second at the Masters and then wins the PGA Championship. DJ in those remote spots, the couple majors he's played, has not played particularly well. But Dustin Johnson's golf game, which is my job to handicap on who's going to play well, Dustin Johnson's playing good golf. Dustin Johnson's arguably the best LIV golfer as far as if you just take strokes gained on the LIV Tour. So every player in golf is choked. The guy with the most second place finishes at major championships is Jack Nicklaus.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. You can join us across the OutKick Network. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow on the OutKick channel on YouTube. Search out OutKick. We hope you'll subscribe. You can join Chad in the chat and give that thumbs up, that like button, and we hope you'll share with your friends as you're watching or listening today on this great radio partner. Bobby Carpenter joins us. SiriusXM college football analyst, contributor with us weekly here as well. Bobby, good to see you, man. Hope things are well. Hope Father's Day was awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty good. You know, what better way to celebrate Father's Day than just a plethora of my kids' sports. So, you know what, got to get up early, go to swim meet, we had some lacrosse, had all kinds of things, but not a bad way to end the weekend.
Not a bad 10-year-old birthday party either for Cullen. Marvin Harrison Jr. shows up to his party. Did I see this? Your son?
Oh, do tell.
Yeah, so, you know, one of the things being over there at Ohio State and being around the guys, it's something that I actually did. One of my current business partners now, when his son, I think, was 8 years old, who's now like 30, I was playing. I went over there, and he owned some campus bars. He used to kind of take care of us there. So Nick Mangold and I went to his son's birthday party. So I was like, you know what? I had my oldest, he'll be 14 this year. So like 5-6 years ago, asked some of the guys to come over, Denzel Ward, Sam Hubbard, stop by. I mean, great dudes. J.K. Dobbins, Tough Borland did it a couple years ago. And then finally now my third son, he's in the era where that's cool. And, you know, he's old enough to understand, but not so old that it's kind of weird. So all his friends came over, went over to Woody Hayes and Marvin Harrison and Kyle McCord, who is one of the guys kind of vying to be the quarterback next year for Ohio State, and was Marvin's high school teammate. Those guys stopped by, unbelievably gracious, took pictures, signed some autographs. You know, guys asked some questions, told them some stories. It was a pretty cool experience. So it's amazing that, you know, I told Marvin's dad this when I saw him spring ball. He did a heck of a job raising a young man, because as good a football player is, I mean, he might be a better guy.
Bobby Carpenter with us. We can describe him the same way. College football analyst with us here on OutKick, Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. So I know you. I think you likely feel the same way we do about Big Ten and SEC. Eventually, it's not happening this year. Doing away with the divisions. We're going to see some of the same rivalries, some that are not. I look at the SEC schedule and I really like it. Meanwhile, I look at the Big Ten, and while it was always lopsided with Penn State chasing Ohio State and Michigan, Bobby, I feel like James Franklin and the Nittany Lions made out great with this new scheduling model, because they're only going to play Ohio State or Michigan every other year. They'll rotate annually, and they pick up Rutgers and Michigan State, I believe. Whenever USC joins, they'll also have USC on that schedule. But that is a huge scheduling victory for James Franklin, who does not have to chase Ohio State and Michigan in the division and doesn't have to face both of them during a season where he's trying to get into a 12-team playoff moving forward.
Yeah, it was kind of frustrating for me, because when, you know, Ohio State, rather than Penn State, joined the Big Ten back in the early 90s, they used to have 2 protected rivalries, and then you would rotate the other 8 teams, since there was 11 teams at that point. And so Ohio State has played Penn State every season. They've been scheduled to play them every year because then they went to the divisions. They've always been in the East. And it's been a nice rivalry. It's been something that I've really enjoyed. Now, the past 15 years, has it been beneficial to Penn State to play Ohio State and then you lot Michigan in there on top of it? Probably not. But the fact that they don't have any built-in rivals, like for me, if I was a Penn State fan or even a player, like who are you supposed to look forward to every year? Everybody has something to circle on your calendar. So you looked around for all the built-in rivalries, and Ohio State had Michigan. Michigan had Ohio State and Michigan State. Iowa had 3 protected rivalries. Like everybody had at least something. There's the USC, UCLA rivalry that'll take place every year, but Penn State doesn't have any. And so they're gonna, like you said, there's going to be teams that roll on their back and forth, and they'll never have to play them the consecutive season. But also with that, like every place, and it is collegiate as it sounds, every team, they've got like a countdown clock to the rivalry game. There's someone every year that you play, and you always talk about it. Even if your year isn't as good as you would hope, and maybe you don't win the conference, maybe you don't go to the CFP, but if you beat your rival, like there's something intrinsically important about that, and the season doesn't feel like a total loss. And for Penn State, I feel for those guys because I don't know what they're going to have like that to be able to simulate that now. And I think James Franklin, I don't know, maybe he didn't want to play Ohio State and Michigan. Like he didn't want to have either one of them on there consistently. But I honestly think it was one of the highest rated games of the year for college football. It's a great recruiting tool. Man, I know it's a tough game to win, but guys, I'm trying to get more high quality football games on television. Like I don't need to see, all these crazy non-conference games where, the score is incredibly lopsided.
Bobby, it's Pete Thamel reporting that there's 2 teams out there, North Carolina, Virginia, that both the SEC and the Big Ten covet to some degree, and they're both vetting as a possible package deal. I believe Virginia makes more sense for the Big Ten and North Carolina makes more sense for the SEC. Just culturally, geographically, even though those states are bordering each other, I feel like that makes more sense. If you can, give us the pitch for why Virginia and North Carolina, if it is a package deal and both move together, why those 2 programs make more sense for the Big Ten as opposed to the SEC.
It's interesting because I know Virginia's been floated around with the Big Ten recently. I would have thought that they would try to get Miami, try to get the South Florida market with it. The Big Ten, right, wrong, or different. One of the things they care about a lot, at least the presidents are the ones that are making these decisions, is the academic status. And Virginia and North Carolina are both very prestigious state schools. They've got great programs. They're AAU members. They've got all the qualifications. They've got, North Carolina has great basketball. The football is ebbed and flowed, but they've made a big investment into it. And really that is the team for the state of North Carolina. So for the SEC, just off the top of my head, I don't believe that there is a university that is within the SEC that is located in North Carolina, because you got the Big 4 and they're all with the ACC. So, I could see it going either way. Virginia, like I said, they're a great academic school, and they've had decent football at times, but they've never had anything consistent. And their basketball obviously has been pretty good the last 5 to 7 years, but basketball doesn't drive the bus monetarily. And then, the reality is too, that both of those schools, they're big in lacrosse, North Carolina, they've got good baseball. They're really good athletic departments as what they're trying to invest in and making sure that their sports are good across the board. So they have a lot of stuff to them. It's just, the reality is, I don't know if Virginia's bringing enough cachet for football, and I don't know if they're bringing enough market strength where you could overlook, the fact that they're really about a 500 football club about the last decade. North Carolina is a far better asset, in my opinion.
How much longer do you think we're going to wait until the Big 12 begins to pluck some of these schools from the Pac-12? Is it coming up early next month? Because that's when we've seen conference realignment news the last 2 years. Colorado, Utah, others. If they're going to move, if you're them, do you move now? And is the Big 12 worth jumping to based on the scenarios that are out there currently?
Well, I think they're trying to get that TV deal finalized to see what it looks like. And the one thing I have heard in the Pac-12 that now they're going to go to a disproportionate share model where I think you're going to be able to get Oregon, you're going to get Washington, some of these other schools that may be better assets, and they're going to drive more of the revenue dollars. They're going to get a larger share. Now, I've never really viewed that as a sustainable model. That's not what the Big Ten does. That's not what the SEC does. That's what the Big 12 did with Oklahoma and Texas. And as you saw, there begins to be animosity. And if you're always able to ask for more, you're always going to keep asking more when you go to redo your grant of rights. So I don't know if that's the best way to go, but that's probably the only way that they can, satiate the two big schools in the North. But the reality is, if Colorado decides to leave, I've been told that both Arizona schools and Utah would be right behind them to the Big 12. If that's the case, what do you have out west?
And you're not mentioning any of those four when you discuss compensation for certain programs that deserve more than the others. Like, to me, that's a no-brainer for the four that you're discussing now for the Big 12 to go ahead and move if you're going to move, because you can do it and not pay a penalty currently.
There's no penalty. And the one thing that the Big 12 negotiated in their TV rights, that any existing Power 5 member that joins the conference, they will add on another share for the revenue. So you're not cutting the pie, you're adding in more slices. And so this is big. So the Big 12, they can go over there and get whoever they want from the Pac-12, because everybody that comes is going to get the same amount of money that every other Big 12 member is currently getting.
What do you believe Deion Sanders is worth to the media agreement for the Pac-12?
I think a lot. Right now, you got to look at what he was able to do in a short time. ESPN broadcast their spring game. You couldn't get anyone to broadcast their games the last 5 years. They've been so bad. They've sold all their season tickets. Like, he is a walking soundbite. People know who he is. He's like a black bum Phillips up there wearing that cowboy hat. He looks sweet.
Yeah,
it is a good look.
I agree.
So I think he has a ton of momentum. They said he's going to be involved of whether or not Colorado leaves joins the Big 12, which to me is crazy, because coaches always tell you that they're the last to know. Never would they be consulted. So I don't know if that's, their president and AD, trying to placate to Deion a little bit, because the other thing is, gentlemen, who's to say how long Deion Sanders is going to be at Colorado? You're telling me if Florida State opened up, or he could go jump to the NFL, or Miami opened up, that he wouldn't take a job like that versus Colorado, or maybe something happened down in the state of Texas. And I think part of the reason he may want to get to the Big 12 is that opens up the Texas market, which is where he lived a long time and played for the Cowboys. And so that would give him more of an inherent recruiting advantage there. But there, to me, he is the most valuable asset probably in the Pac-12 outside of Washington and Oregon.
Opened up discussing Penn State out of the Big Ten with the new scheduling model. Let's close with Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher. First, they're not going to have Alabama on the annual schedule. That alone benefits them, and not playing in the West. But, Bobby, no annual meeting there. Next season, their road slate in conference is Florida, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Auburn. That's great, considering what some of the other road slates look like in the Southeastern Conference. It has been time for Jimbo Fisher to win. Number one, what do you think this scheduling model does for the Aggies? Number two, do you think Jimbo Fisher makes it to next year's schedule based on the pressure that is on him to win now, despite the buyout that it would take to kick him out?
So, as you mentioned this, they got a little bit, like you said, the Penn State treatment. Alabama and LSU, we're not playing them every year. So that's a huge win where you don't have both of those behemoths that you're going to have to take on annually. And hoping if you can get a split, that's pretty good. I don't know. This year, they've got to win at least 8 or 9 games. There's no way that they could finish 6-6 again, I think, and keep his job. And part of it is going to be the success of the Bobby Petrino experiment. Jimbo Fisher is a guy that's used to being in charge, used to calling plays. Apparently, he's given that up, or given the illusion he's giving up, and he's bringing in Bobby Petrino, another guy who is used to being in charge and used to calling plays. And maybe this thing works great. And you know what? And they go score 49 points in the opener, and they cruise along, and they've got some high-powered offense that looks really good. But if it doesn't go well, and you start to see Jimbo try to overrule Petrino and Petrino snapping back, you could have a very, very volatile situation on that coaching staff, which it'll be high levels of entertainment. But I don't know if you're a booster there or you work in the athletic department, not only then would you not be winning, but now you also have a sideshow with these two guys, which I don't think anybody really is signing up for.
Bobby Carpenter joins us weekly here on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. You can follow him on social at bcarp3. Bobby, thank you as always, man. And, next time we hang out, I want to chug some garage beer with you. I've been seeing this all over your social.
Well, it's good stuff, man. You guys would like it. So we'll have to get some down in Nashville for you.
Let's do it.
Yeah, sounds good. There's
Thanks,
Bobby Carpenter there, college football analyst. SiriusXM Channel 84 is where you can find him in the afternoons, mornings, Columbus Radio.
Can't wait to see how things play out with A&M now with Bobby Petrino there that Bobby was just talking about. Interesting comparison to me in the Big Ten is Mel Tucker, who's got a mammoth contract, who greatly underachieved a year ago. Now he's lost his quarterback to Auburn in the transfer portal. But I feel like everyone there in East Lansing is in a similar spot where they just got to pray that it works out because that contract is such an albatross they paid to keep him there after one good year. So that's going to be an interesting spot also. It's not to Jimbo territory yet in terms of
You're right
angst,
to bring him up.
but he's getting paid a ton.
Over $9 million.
Yeah.
And he's in a forgotten spot. And if you started listing off coaches on the hot seat, Mel Tucker is, at least for me, not top of mind. Michigan State's program, not top of mind.
And a program that does not have the resources of A&M and the recruiting footprint of A&M. And, oh, by the way, they compete with Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, some of the best programs in college football.
Coming up, there's an ESPN writer who says that Major League Baseball is not diverse enough. Details on that, and we'll give our opinion next on Hot Mic.
What is your primary complaint?
When people pop their knuckles.
Primary complaint is chewing with your mouth open. Yuck.
I would say when you're getting off an airplane and people in the back try and sprint to the front, especially like late at night, like you don't have a connecting flight, just wait like everybody else. I'd say that's fine.
Small portions, big bill. Yeah, if the quality's good, it's okay. But if there's small portions and I got a big fat bill, not a thing, you know.
Sun Country Airlines canceling our flight less than 8 hours before we're supposed to leave.
I've never even heard of Sun Country Airlines in my life.
Velcro.
Velcro? Why? What about it?
The sound.
Oh, like nails on a chalkboard for you.
I'm a kindergarten teacher, and to hear that Velcro.
Time to teach them how to tie their shoes.
When they don't cross the road when no cars are driving.
They're just waiting for the light?
Yeah, like a normal person.
Yeah, you got to break the rules a little bit.
We're right from New York City. We know how to walk.
Really upset. Ben Jones is no longer with the Titans, but more importantly, I'm upset the Titans didn't draft a wide receiver in the top 2 rounds. We need receivers, guys. Come on, tighten up.
So what do you think about Will Levis? Was that a good move or a bad move?
Ooh, that's a tough call. Time will tell. But I think we needed a receiver more.
Smack their gum. Chew with their mouth open and smack their gum.
Okay.
That with chips and everything else, yeah.
Liars.
Liars. Okay. Has anyone lied to you recently?
No.
Have you lied?
Always.
One of the biggest pet peeves is not knowing your manners. Like, not having respect or thank you, sir, ma'am.
My biggest pet peeve is when you don't push your chair in after you leave a table. That's my biggest pet peeve. Really is.
So like when people want to speak to you and they're like you to me, but they start walking out of the other room into different rooms and they keep talking like, I am supposed to understand. I can't hardly understand people when their back is turned to me and when they're not talking right at me. So when you're getting into different rooms and you keep talking like, yeah, blah, 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 it must be my dog talking to me.
There's a crane over every building. There's a truck.
There's a whole something. Yeah. So let's get the streets fixed and get those things done. Time's wasted. Let's go.
A dirty house.
Dirty house. Like, are you a shoes off at the front door kind of guy?
Off front, yes, ma'am.
I hate it when centre backs don't bat the odd one. But you know, when the centre backs go up to try and catch the ball all the time, they should back the odd one.
You know, siblings are pet peeves, you know, to be honest with you. You know, just looking at him, he's a pet peeve.
I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I like to get along with others. I kind of leave people in their place. When people don't follow the social construct, it really upsets me. Example, when you stand up on an airplane, right when it lands, and then try to push past people down the line. You know what orders you're supposed to go in. That's the part of the social contract. When you're grocery shopping and you have your cart and you don't take it back to the cart delivery spot, but you just leave it by there beside the parking spot, taking up someone else's spot, violating the social contract. Do what you're supposed to. Yeah, do your civic duty. Follow through with what your parents told you to do.
Coming up, Jordan Love. He's taking over for Aaron Rodgers in more ways than one. But we'll find out if he's as consistent as Rodgers against the Chicago Bears.
Also, shocking that all of his teammates just love the guy. You know, best quarterback in the league, maybe. They just love him. That's the most overplayed headline, is when a new guy takes over and teammates are complimentary of the new guy.
Or rookies, or that no one's had a bad offseason.
A tale as old as time is overstating how good someone is when they're the new leader of your team and the new quarterback. Man, this guy might be the best ever. Not just the best right now. It might be the best ever, this Jordan Love guy. That's how good he's been.
Super Bowl bound. Still waiting on DeAndre Hopkins to make up his mind. Visited the Titans and the Patriots last week. Packers are also rumored to be in the mix there. Just tying that in with Love. They could use some DeAndre Hopkins love in Green Bay with some other weapons being added to the mix. Chad, there is a group called the Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sport. And there's one ESPN writer, at least he was asked or approved to write this column for ESPN. He's not a full-time writer, who says that Major League Baseball is not diverse enough, either racially or through gender, and points to all these different stats about the lack of African Americans playing in baseball, but fails to mention what the NBA is currently consisting of, where only 3% of the NBA players are Latino, 0.4% are Asian, 16% are Caucasian, and no one says that's a problem either. And I don't think it's a problem, because the best players are playing in the NBA. I would say the same for Major League Baseball. And based on the C+ grade, I'm sitting here going, like, didn't we already know this? Like, the direction of where Major League Baseball has gone, that the players that are at the top of the game in the entire world are coming out of the Dominican Republic. They're not coming out of the United States, by and large. The best player in the world is Asian, in Shohei Ohtani, and he's compensated like that.
Yeah, it's all about, to me, this is far less about diversity and more about aspirations. and the aspirations of people from different countries of what sport their best athletes want to play.
Well, keep playing.
And want to conquer.
And keep playing.
Want to keep playing. This is not just some, poorly kept secret out there. The best athletes in every country could pick a sport at a young age and excel in it. It's about what they want to stay into and what they want to keep playing. When I grew up, all of my favorite baseball players were African-American players. Eric Davis, Ricky Henderson, David Justice. I can go on down the list. Those were the players I liked watching more than anyone else. So I also want to see more African-American kids grow up in the game and continue on through Major League Baseball. I would love to see that. But I think here's what happens psychologically. And it happens with white dudes in basketball too. There are a lot more white guys playing Major League Baseball than there are African Americans. There's a lot more Latin American players playing Major League Baseball, and that's because everyone in the countries they grow up in, they're wanting to grow up and play baseball or soccer. Why does America fall behind the rest of the world in soccer? Because almost every other country, all of their best athletes start in soccer, stay in soccer, excel in soccer. And in the United States, the best athletes out there oftentimes are not being gravitated towards soccer. That's not what they're drawn to. They're drawn to what they see most of. NFL football is what they want to play. They want to play in the NBA. They want to play Major League Baseball. But for a long time, there's a lot of black kids in America who see a lot of African Americans playing in the NBA, and that's what they want to play. Or in the NFL, and they want to play that. I think psychologically, that has a big effect. And it just perpetuates one towards the other. It's not Major League Baseball's fault for that. If there's any lack of diversity, that's not the problem for them.
Well, I see this, and I think you can make the same argument for the lack of other ethnicities in other major league sports. It's just how you want to frame it.
Yeah.
And they decided to go with the selective casting of Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it's not their kind of diversity they want.
Right.
The Latin American diversity or foreign-born diversity, that's not good enough for them. They just want more African Americans.
I do think there is, and it's not like you just snap your fingers and change that to what you're saying. I think there's a deeper conversation on how many kids start out playing baseball versus how many continue to stick with it. And I think this changed around our generation in high school, Chad. I really do. Because at least in you or I, from within 60 miles, 100 miles from each other.
Yep.
And when we were in high school, and at least where I went to high school, the coaches were competing against each other on which sport the best players were going to play. And that turned out to be, in many cases, basketball. The basketball coach won out on that argument on where you're going to spend your time, and your year-round assets were going to be focused on getting better at one sport instead of playing multiple. And I think once you get out of the junior league and Babe Ruth league, by and large, you pick a sport once you become a freshman in high school, one or two. I don't know of many that are playing 3 or 4. I mean, in today's NFL draft, how many do we see he played basketball and football? Not many baseball players, not many soccer players. Track, basketball, and football are the predominant sports that we see for the average American athlete that are making it at the highest level. And
yes.
And you could reverse it if you went and discuss Dominican Republic. It's soccer and baseball, right? On what you're growing up playing. And these guys end up becoming the best players in the world by and large, the most consistent, dominant players at that sport.
There's also, there's so many factors in this, but I think for some diversity committee to come up with, you got a C+ because you don't have enough black players is ludicrous. And also, it's a problem Major League Baseball has tried to address with the RBI program in inner cities, trying to get more.
And with the new rules, they're trying to get more eyeballs on their product.
Playing the game and all of that. But at some point, great athletes are going to make a decision. How often do you see an NBA player or a football player in the NFL or NBA that says, hey, by the way, this guy was drafted in the 17th round out of high school in baseball, but they chose a different sport? It happens all the time, right?
Yep.
Look, we could unpack this a lot of different ways. Travel baseball is very expensive. at a young age. It takes more time commitment and equipment commitment.
Now there's fall
to play
ball.
the game.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have to
basketball and football.
It's unfair,
Football is
but
way more organized by a school or a program.
The AAU circuits, the different things you have to do in the off season now. It's in season if you're in. It's in season for the next sport you want to play, but it's the off season program for the sport that you love growing up, whatever it is, and that coach expects 100% attention in that direction. And that's very unfortunate, but that's the very specific lane that everyone's focused on now. You pick your craft and you stick with it. And if you don't, you don't play.
Yeah.
You feel like you're losing out on an opportunity to prove your starting quality, or you're going to get your minutes as a sophomore or junior.
Well, and also, again, the psychological part of it, right? Like we talk about representation all the time.
Yeah.
I want to turn on a TV and see people who look like me. You hear this all the time, or there's not enough people who look like me or are like me when I'm watching a sport or watching a television show or a movie or whatever it may be. Kids tend to gravitate towards that as well. And, I mean, I'll give you an example. I didn't do that. I played basketball growing up in baseball. I was way naturally better at baseball, but to Hutton's point, you get pushed by your school a lot of times towards basketball over baseball in different instances. And I was one that I liked basketball more. Well, I played my first AAU tournament at 14 or 15, and guess what? I quickly realized when I played some teams with inner city players that were a lot better and a lot more talented than me, probably wasn't going to play in the NBA. Didn't stop me from watching the NBA and aspiring to that and wanting to do that one day. But had I stuck with baseball, yeah, maybe I could have played in college. Wouldn't have been a major leaguer or anything, but maybe I could have gotten some scholarship money having done that. There are now athletes making that business decision at the age of 9 or 10 and going into one sport. I didn't have the foresight to make that decision. I liked basketball because I liked it more.
But I think
it wasn't me making a decision on I could go further in one sport or the other. I could have gone further in baseball. But I chose basketball because I liked it more. How many great athletes are making that call, or are they just saying, I've got a better future here, so I'm going to go in this direction? I think it's a lot of business decisions being made also.
And a way out, right?
For a lot of people.
Of what happened, what you saw your friend do, or the best player to come through your school, what that guy or girl ended up doing for that matter, whether it's softball or basketball in women's sports. But I do think that the parents now are around our age of the 9, 10-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
And it was when we were in school playing, the coaches were bitching and moaning about who was going to get the so-and-so player to stick around during baseball season or during football season. Focus on basketball, focus on football,
Coaches would fight over athletes all the time.
They want you running track, and that's about it. Because that keeps you in shape year-round. That was the focus. And it's also the coaches that don't like each other, right?
Yeah, and
that's also too. It's a competitive thing when you're recruiting down the hallway.
I don't
think that's the sole focus, but I do think that plays a factor.
Well, and again, great athletes can do almost anything, right?
Yes.
If you're one of the elite athletes, if you started a sport young and just stuck with it, you could do it for a long time. I'm willing to bet.
Jim Brown playing lacrosse, for instance.
The guys who aren't 6'11", 7 feet tall. If you are 6'2" to 6'6", playing in NBA, those NBA players are good enough athletes that if they would have decided, you know what, I'm just going to stick with baseball starting at 7 years old, and we could go in reverse and start that over, they'd probably be in the majors because they're that good of an athlete. So a lot of this is just about young athlete choice and not about some decision from a league to make things more diverse or less diverse.
Well, but also, let's also point this out from ESPN's perspective. They've got this guy writing who's not the full-time writer. He lists something else on his bio. This is nothing but the clickbait BS. By the way, this happens all over the place, but in ESPN's perspective, who are they to determine, we are the diversity police. We are going to go on patrol and have these report cards. And we're going to have a guy come in that says that Major League Baseball is not diverse enough. And we're going to leave out the fact that you can flip the argument any way you want to on any sport based on the percentages of how things, play out globally for the sport that we're covering. It's ridiculous. And it's not always sinister.
Exactly.
Everything has to be sinister. I'm not buying it. Sorry. I'm going to use common sense on any story. I'm not going to just read something and be like, this headline, man, Major League Baseball must
be racist based on this headline.
They're really holding people back from, they're not calling up enough diversity from the minors, not drafting enough. Get out of here with that. It's just not the case.
It's stupid, and you made a good point. The reasoning behind something happening like this is not always sinister. It could just be that a lot of young African Americans don't like baseball and don't want to play it. And guess what? It's America. That's fine. If they're dominating the NBA and you want to go play basketball and you're dominating youth sports and want to stay with it, stay with it. Play in the NFL. It's not baseball's problem of what race excels in the sport, ever. It's a meritocracy. It's why we love sports. It's a meritocracy.
We'll
It's
get
not
back
about
to
picking
sports
and choosing.
when we return. Jordan Love, he's picking on the Bears, just like Aaron Rodgers did. And is it worthy of that? We'll find out.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in the land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Old taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Monday edition for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Join us in the chat on YouTube. If you're listening on this great radio partner, we say thank you. Welcome in. Weekdays, 3 o'clock Eastern, right here. And check out all the great shows across OutKick. One of two ways to do that. Number one, go to outkick.com. Click on shows. Everything's there, from our daily shows to podcasts and much more. You can also go to YouTube, search out OutKick. We hope you'll subscribe to the channel and interact with us on a daily basis. They're live and on demand whenever you need it, plus extra clips and more. We'll get back into the U.S. Open discussion coming up a bit later in the show. Charlie Arnold will join us in about 20 minutes. Looking forward to the very special guest, Charlie Arnold, who will join us each and every Monday from OutKick. And we've also got Skip Holtz, son of Lou, and a champion.
Son of Lou.
USFL champion from last year, Birmingham, back in it this year for the USFL playoffs. And beyond that, just where we're headed from his perspective. Longtime coach at East Carolina and other spots. But from the haves and the have-nots in college football specifically, what he saw on the horizon, why he chose to get out of college coaching, and why he's enjoying doing exactly what he's doing with the USFL instead of making the rounds and trying to keep a job in today's landscape for what college is becoming, which is the name, image, likeness debate.
And I thought you were going to go more into like a Game of Thrones title with, you said Skip Holtz, son of Lou.
Son of Lou.
Rider of dragons, master of footballs, leader of offense. I thought you were going to have about 8 different titles for him when you went into son of Lou. Firstborn of his name.
Jordan Love is the third. He's the third in the lineage of all things king of Green Bay. From Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. And can Jordan Love follow in that path? Because Rodgers did it with Favre, and now he's on his way to the Jets just like Brett Favre did. And Love's taking over. And you're right, Chad, you mentioned earlier in the show, all the teammates of Green Bay love Love. They love them some Love right now. Jordan Love was wishing Bears fans a happy Father's Day. He's trying to clarify this a bit, but here he is on social media with a fan wishing other Bears fans a very happy Father's Day yesterday.
Happy Father's Day to all the Bears fans out there. Go Pack, go.
So this is, he says, like the French Bears or something. He's in Paris, and he's like, some guy came up and he wanted to do with the French Bears, and on the intro to this, they didn't put in there that it was the French Bears, not the Chicago Bears. More like a fan club than anything else. I love this. I mean, the way Rodgers owned Chicago, Jordan Love's already calling a shot. Like that, I wish he would lean into it more than try to clarify it on social.
See, I hate it because, A, you can't steal another man's joke. It was a great, funny joke because Aaron Rodgers dominated them, and he came up.
It's the franchise's joke, though.
He came up with the joke.
There's been a lot of domination.
But he was the one who coined the I am your daddy to the Bears. So it's his joke, and Jordan Love has not done anything yet. Now, I'm all for one win. If he goes in there and wins the first one and wants to say, just to let you know, there's a new daddy in town, and he wears number 10 and not number 12, I'm all for that joke. That's hilarious. You sit on that. You rest on that joke. And the moment you beat the Chicago Bears, just like your previous daddy, Aaron Rodgers did, you pounce on that joke, and I am all about that. This seemed forced, though. Very forced. Forced like the teammates of Jordan Love, acting like this guy is Tom Brady already. No, that's how forced it was.
But as I read the story from other outlets, it's Love is saying, and he's got the social media account. It's a Bears fan that asked him to do this Happy Father's Day, whatever, to some French Bears deal.
Was it like what's the company where you pay? The one that we at one point got Dan Dockich to do, Cameo.
Oh, is it Cameo? No,
was it a Cameo request?
No, it's like a guy came up to him. That was the fan's phone. He was just holding this phone and he recorded this for whatever they were sending out on social.
Well, I take back everything I said then, if that's the case.
Yeah,
it's a request from some Parisian when he's on a French vacation?
Yeah, yes. That's the way I understand it.
Well, reading the story at OutKick made it like this guy just pounced on something and made it sound like he's taking Aaron Rodgers' joke. I read the first 3 paragraphs of the story at OutKick, which destroys the guy for doing that because he's done nothing. And the headline read, Jordan Love takes credit for being the Bears' daddy and hasn't accomplished anything. So I did not know that part of the story. I retract. I apologize.
A Bears fan admitted that he asked Love to wish a happy Father's Day to French Bears fans in his fan club.
Yeah.
Love apparently just forgot to mention the French part.
On behalf of OutKick, I'd like to apologize to Jordan Love also, because that is a misleading headline.
Well, he did.
He was just being nice to someone who asked him to wish them a Father's Day to Bears fans.
He retweeted this dude who, he doesn't look French. I don't know how I would describe this. What would you say? He looks like a...
I don't know what French looks like, so...
Well,
he's a white guy.
Yeah,
so he could be French, he could be Belgian. For all I don't know.
But he could be in Green Bay is what I'm saying. Like, you can't really tell where he is.
Yeah.
But this guy, Chris D 69 007 is his Twitter account. I handed him my phone asking him to make a fun video to originally wish the French Bears fan a happy Father's Day. And that is his take. Though he forgot to mention French, and obviously I or better said he lit the fire. Here you go. Here's the picture before the video. And then Jordan Love retweets it and says, was asked to do a special favor for this fan.
Yeah, we're getting torched now on the YouTube chat. Paul says, thank you for reinforcing the clickbait I was just talking about with ESPN. But also thank you for apologizing for running with the clickbait headline.
Yeah. Now, I do hope that Chicago Bears fans, because the cat's out of the bag now, right? I do hope they take offense to this.
Yeah, maybe the Bears will fight
also,
back
if you're
now
a Bears fan,
win some games against
if
the
you're
Packers.
a Bears fan in Paris, why are you having Jordan Love wish Bears fans a happy Father's Day?
I don't know. Again, don't know.
That's worse than having the quarterback say it.
Yeah, just beat the Packers. Moving on.
Speaking of Father's Day, Charlie Culberson, has he played since he was called up, Chad? I don't recall him for the Braves. Infielder. I know he was called up to the roster.
He has. Maybe he's pinch hit.
Middle of last month, I believe.
Yeah.
But his dad was scheduled to throw out the ceremonial first pitch yesterday. And just prior to the Father's Day game, by the way, the Braves are just dominating. Everything's a blowout. Looks like a low-scoring football game on the scoreboard in Atlanta right now on the diamond. Looking at it here, he's called up May 17th, no appearances. And his dad was scheduled to throw out the first pitch, but Culberson designated for assignment so they could call up Chadwick Trump. To me, the story is Chad Withrow, who hates his name. There is a catcher for the Atlanta Braves named Chadwick Trump, who had to be called up because Sean Murphy has a hamstring or a groin injury or something. But Chadwick took the place of Culberson, and then
I saw Chadwick
Michael Harris's
Trump,
dad, I think, threw out the first pitch instead.
Yeah, earlier this year, and I thought, is this guy real? You don't know many Chadwicks. You don't meet him, especially the last name Chadwick Trump. He's had a career. I mean, he's been around the majors for a little while. Had never heard of him until I saw him play a few games earlier this year for the Braves.
Do you prefer Chad or Chadwick?
Oh, I prefer.
Would you go by Chad if your name was Chadwick?
Neither.
I know.
But I mean, I used to.
Would you go by Chad if your name was Chad?
I would fool the ladies in junior high by saying my birth name was Chadwick.
Well, sometimes I do
because
refer
I
to you as
thought that
Chadwick.
was like when I'm 13, I thought it was like sophisticated and British. That my name was Chadwick and way smarter sounding than Chad. So I remember girls would sign my yearbook to Chadwick. Had the best time in chemistry class this year. Love, Lindsay. But everyone would make it out. I should bring it in. Would make out my yearbook to Chadwick instead of Chad because I would tell them my full name was Chadwick. The girls at Mount Juliet Junior High loved it. I can tell you that.
On occasion, I'll be mistaken for Chad, and I'll sign your name or I'll introduce. I'm going to always sign Chadwick or introduce myself as Chadwick.
You should always definitely sign Chadwick Withrow just to really throw them off. Confuse the heck out of everyone.
Chadwick Trump took the spot.
That's also tough of
you know what this is though?
Of Culberson's dad being called in to throw out the first pitch.
Luckily, Michael Harris's father was there, and
I think
Harris went 5 for 5.
I believe both are local. That's why they're both from the Atlanta area.
Well,
Matt Olson though is from Atlanta, so if his dad's around, like there are other players. I mean, and also you don't have to be so cheap. Just fly in a star's parent. Like, is Ronald Acuna Jr.'s dad around in Venezuela? Fly him up. Let's get the superstar's dad to throw out the Father's Day first pitch.
Was he even going to play?
If you've got a Father's Day home
He hasn't played since he was called up on the 19th.
No, he wasn't going to play. I really think they found the dad in Gwinnett County that's close by with the player who grew up around and said, hey, we'll give you a pass to come out and throw out the Father's Day first pitch. And then when they sent him down, they said, oh, let's find the other kid who's got a dad in Atlanta, which was Michael Harris.
But also, like, this is also an example of all the promotional crap and the social stuff that goes on. By and large, the managers and coaches don't care. They don't pay attention to it. This is just the oversight of not even knowing this was going on. And they made the move based on the injury. And the guy that's not even playing, they designated for assignment. I mean, it looks bad on Father's Day, but I mean, do I think Charlie's dad is hurting over this? I mean, it sucks that he's designated for assignment, but that could have been any day. I don't think he feels any worse because it's Father's Day. How dare you, son? How dare you disrespect me on my day?
Yeah, Michael Harris from DeKalb County. So from Atlanta. So
they scrambled.
They went down the list of, okay, whose dad is within 20 minutes of the park that we can get down here? And it was Michael Harris.
Bradley Beal traded to the Phoenix Suns, and here are the Suns back in it again, all in. They traded for Durant at the deadline last year. Now they have Durant, Booker, Beal, and DeAndre Ayton combined. $723 million for the entirety of all of their contracts. That's fully guaranteed by Matt Ishbia and the Phoenix Suns.
It's the new super team.
The pressure's
they're the leader in the clubhouse now.
It's
for
them
the
in Denver.
Yeah, they've got their big three with Bradley Beal. Now, a guy who twice in his career has averaged over 30 points per game with the Wizards.
But it's been a couple years now.
Yeah, but still, look, this is not LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. This is a new version of a big three.
Well, and it's
also not Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant.
But they got him on the cheap. I mean, they pick up the contract, but they trade away Chris Paul and maybe a couple of second-round picks, I believe, to get Bradley Beal from Washington. They're automatically better. You can make the argument that they're overpaying a couple of these guys based on the money that they're making. They're just the four guys alone, though. They're already over the cap threshold for penalty. So the question is, like, how do they come up with their roster in order to have the depth necessary if one of these guys goes down or whatever they do for load management and everything else in between? They'll figure out a way. There's going to be a steep luxury tax on Phoenix because four guys alone are well over the threshold and the ceiling compared to some of the other franchises across the league. The numbers are nuts.
Well, give Matt Ishbia credit. He has come in guns a-blazing, ready to go, and ready to change some things up. Look at all he's done since landing. Trading for Durant, firing the coach, hiring a new one, trading for Bradley Beal, tearing up a bad television contract, and putting the games on for free locally.
One of the assistants for Phoenix, they kept him, and he's the highest paid assistant in the game now, like $2 million to be the assistant coach on an NBA coaching staff. Sun salaries, you have to count campaign as part of this, but they're 5 players along with the big three plus Ayton and Payne. 5 players total, $169.4 million, 10 roster spots left to fill. The super tax apron is $179.5. So they're $10 million away from the super tax that Ishbia is going to have to play, and they've still got 10 players they're going to have to add to the roster, depth-wise.
Should be a good contender for Denver. Good challenger in the Western Conference.
And Draymond Green opting out of his 1 year left on the player option in Golden State. Reading about this, so it's a $29.5 million option for Draymond. He's getting more into the bidding war, and he'll drive up the price and potentially stays in Golden State, but on an extended contract instead of the 1 year deal for $29.5. Tony Snell.
By the way, I'm curious if that's going to happen, given how quickly everyone said that his issue with Jordan Poole derailed their season before it started.
He admitted that.
Yes. Others have, too, and talked about how big of a distraction it was. I immediately thought, I wonder if that means he's done in Golden State.
It's hard for me. Well, maybe, because they're switching up GM, right? They do have some big-time roster decisions to be made. 2 big players now to be free agents. I don't think they can just throw it in, though. Draymond impacted that roster more than he gets credit for.
Of course.
But
he's a big part of all their championships.
But he's also a detriment at times.
Yeah.
But even whenever he's getting technicals and being suspended for a game for whatever he's doing in the game, by and large, they continue to win the series.
Yeah, he's a guy you want on your side. He's a useful pest, and the pest that you want playing for you and not against you. And that's what he's made his mark doing for the Warriors, and he's won multiple championships doing that. So his career has been a big success. Being who he is has been successful, but it does seem to me that maybe teammates started taking the side of Jordan Poole over him after that issue and the way things went down, and that may have upset the apple cart a bit this year for the Warriors. We'll see. We'll see what kind of decision the new GM makes.
The dynamic was weird. You're right. Yeah, they were just off. They started to click, though. First, win on the road. That was the anomaly that was so puzzling with this team. They were fine at home. Looked like everything was fine, chemistry-wise. On the road, different story. Tony Snell, NBA vet, 31 years old, and last year did not get called up to any of the 10-day rosters, and he's in the G League last season professionally. Diagnosed with autism at 31 years old. He went in for the testing because he'd always felt strange, different, weird. Paraphrasing all that, but his 18-month-old was missing like developmental milestones on the calendar, on the weekly calendar. So his 18-month-old was diagnosed with autism, and he decided to go get tested, checked everything that comes with that. Turns out he was diagnosed as well. And now he's going to be doing things with Special Olympics and other things to raise more awareness about it. But props, man. And hope everything goes well. Plus, the first person diagnosed with autism passed away this weekend at the age of 89. R.I.P. Don Triplett. Coming up, Charlie Arnold joins us, and we discuss the Dodgers' decision to move forward with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence.
In Washington and you and Bryce got into it, and the media, that was like everywhere forever, and people were asking me, I said, I'm not sure you people understand that happens like 3 times a week. Most of the time it happens behind the scenes.
You know how many times Tech would whoop my ass?
Oh no, but I know, and I was on the other end of that as well. I was on both ends of that. But
here's the thing though too is you know how player only meetings are. We had many of those about our manager at the time, about the general man, about, everything included. I went there, we were up 3 games. Now all of a sudden we're down 3 games and it's end of September. And, we had a lot, like there was a lot of things that went on that said, okay, all right, guys, we're going to start running the bases right. We're going to start pitching with authority and command the strike zone. We're not going to we got to get back. Right. All these things in an hour-long team meeting. Well, and then the very next day we go out and we do the same and then it's like over and over. And so things exploded and it happens on the field. Me and Bryce are great today, man.
Well, and I love you both. I love him. I've only met him a couple times, but I love the hell out of him. He's a pro. He plays hard and all the things that he does.
100% leader now. And that's the thing is people don't understand is we go through these things in life, man, that either take us to or away from God, that take us to or away from the fans, and for our families and all our teammates and brotherhoods and all this bullshit. And it makes you who you are.
Who are the 2 or 3 guys over your career that were most influential on you as pitchers in the bullpen? Because you guys sit down there and you wouldn't come down till, I don't remember, 6th or 7th inning or whatever. But when you sat down who were the guys that you really became better because of their presence?
Okay, well, 2 guys really, and for me, talking just strictly bullpen guys, believe it or not, were Gagne. Gagne taught me a lot about longevity and mistakes in life, how to get through more life than any.
Right.
I don't know, man.
People don't remember. He came to us at the end of his career I got to see him when he was in his prime, and he was the most dominating pitcher I ever seen in my life. He had 5 wipeout pitches.
Unbelievable.
And he did things with the baseball I've never seen anybody do. But he was with us for a brief period in Boston, and I didn't realize that. That's great to hear, though, because I loved him. He was a great dude.
Yeah, he was a great guy, and he came to us, and I'll never forget it. He called me up before he came. He said, "Pap, you're going to close here. I want to set you up, and I'm on the tail end of my career." We had a good talk with Theo, and it was. And to me, I learned the business then, and it helped me on my way out too. When I got old and was like, okay, it's time to turn the ball over. But and even speaking earlier, when I made that comment in New York, I had always been like that. And what was funny is we had this camp in big league camp for some of the prospects, and Theo made us write down what we thought we were going to do our career. And I said, well, I'm going to be in the Hall of Fame, Theo. I don't need to write I'm in the Hall of Fame. Well, I fell a little short of it, but
but you wouldn't have been the player you were without that mentality.
Correct. Yeah.
We're live, 6th and Peabody, our location here in Nashville. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Join us in the chat on YouTube, also at OutKick.com. Very special guest each and every Monday is Charlie Arnold, who joins us now. Charlie, good to see you. Did you get caught in the parade, the Las Vegas Golden Knights parade? I know you're out in Vegas for UFC this past weekend.
I did not get caught in the parade traffic because I actually was very well aware that the parade was going to be taking place. So I made alternate arrangements and did not stay anywhere near the Strip. I stayed in Summerlin, which is a suburb of Las Vegas, and actually my favorite part of Las Vegas to spend time in general. So I was far, far away from everything crazy and anything that would have disrupted my peace. And I'm very thankful I made that decision.
Chad, for a franchise that's been around for just 6 seasons, they had quite the turnout. It's amazing what Vegas will bring in.
You spend a lot more time there than we do, Charlie, with your work with UFC. I have a hard time wrapping my mind around Vegas as some sports town other than tourists coming in to go to sports books. I just don't see the Vegas local community really rallying behind their teams, but this parade looked pretty awesome. So how is Vegas as a sports town?
Vegas is actually one of the best sports towns, like unknowingly one of the best. I think it's kind of been, like you said, just recently, we've seen all of these fans rallying around the new teams they have, whether it be the Golden Knights or whether it be the Raiders, or, they're talking about putting an NBA franchise there. The UFC is there. The Super Bowl is going to be there. I mean, Vegas is actually turning into one of the greatest sports cities, believe it or not, I think in the entire country. And although there is like a pretty large transient population in Vegas, I think that a lot of them there are just the types of people who would naturally rally around sports teams. A lot of them work in the hospitality industry. They're young. They're looking to have some fun. And, whether or not they actually will totally get behind the teams is one thing, but they're definitely down to go put themselves in a fun environment and drink a beer. Not Bud Light, but a beer.
Charlie Arnold joins us here on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. So the LA Dodgers presented a Community Hero Award to the anti-Catholic group, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, over the weekend. Marco Rubio, senator, you've got the public, even Major League Baseball players that were against this. This goes against the code of conduct for the organization as a whole, which prohibits wearing anything or saying anything that goes against anyone's age, gender, creed, or religion. But Charlie, the Dodgers said, yeah, screw it. We don't care what you think, based on the fact we're going to honor this group on Pride Night. And they did so an hour before the game with very little amount of fan attendance. Luckily, Ian Miller from OutKick.com was there to snap some photos.
Wow, these people are scary. I mean, that's what nightmares are made of. Quite the opposite of what you'd expect from the Catholic religion, which, helps you to live your life in a tame, respectable manner. These people are, oh my God, they're creepy. But I'm happy to have seen the photos. So thank you, Ian, for being there. Thank you for doing what pretty much no one else wanted to do, and that was attend that night's game, because it was absolutely ridiculous. I even saw photos from during the actual game when it was taking place. I mean, there was so many empty seats. It was clear that a lot of people decided, there are other things that I can do on this night. I think it might be worth missing the Dodgers game, and that's what they deserve. This group should have never have been honored at this game. It's just such a slap in the face to so many of their Christian fans who make up such a large portion of their fan base. And, now they're going to have the prayer night in a response. We heard them talk about a few weeks ago. It's just, come on. What is this group? This isn't anything about pride. This has nothing to do with pride. These are just some wackos who have nothing better to do but bash the Christian religion and, give us all nightmares, like I just mentioned. So, I'm glad that people didn't show up.
Well, and who wanted this? I mean, I watch this and I think even the group, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, who would want to be there an hour and 15 minutes before the game? I'm looking at the pictures. There's about 3 of them that showed up. It's no honor to do that. What they're doing is not honorable. What the Dodgers are doing by inviting, then rescinding the invitation, and then inviting again is only pissing off their future Hall of Fame pitcher, Clayton Kershaw. I just look at the whole thing, Charlie, and I think, what the hell are we doing? Like, I don't feel like any side wanted that. I don't think they even wanted to be honored in that way. It's just all so strange to me. It's a bizarro world.
Well, this is what we're seeing in so many different corporations and companies, though. Like there's so many different places that are inserting the left's insane political agenda into their daily workings because they need to. That's the way that they, stay in the good graces of those who provide funding and those who make the decisions and oversee everything that they do. But I think it's clear the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence are not baseball fans. They probably have never watched a moment of baseball in their lives. And so they didn't realize that showing up to a baseball game an hour and 15 minutes early wasn't cool. They were probably like, oh my God, this is our big moment. This is time to spread all of our hatred and lies and, do what I guess we always do. And then they came to realize, oh, nobody's here. And, I'm glad that's how it all transpired.
I've long said if I owned a team, which I never will, but if I did own a team.
Say that you could own a team one day. I believe in you.
I mean, dreams can possibly come true, but probably not for this guy, Charlie. Let's be honest. I'm never going to own a team. But if I did, my team would stand for nothing but my team, and we would give the charities that we wanted. Everything we'd give money to would be the least controversial thing ever. Childhood cancer. We'd give money to that. We would honor the troops. We would do things like that. But we stand for nothing because I want anyone who wants to buy a ticket and go by the rules of the ballpark or the arena or whatever to have a good time and come out to the ballpark and pay for a ticket.
All are welcome.
And now the Texas Rangers are one of my favorite teams because apparently they've taken that stance and they said, yeah, everyone else is doing a Pride night. We don't need it. We're in a pennant chase right now. We're going to be about the Texas Rangers right now and nothing else. And I applaud them for it, Charlie.
Yeah, I applaud it, especially when there's so much pressure. There's so much peer pressure. You see all the other teams caving to the left, and you see the Rangers standing strong, remaining very convicted in their belief that they need to be leaving politics out of the game. That's not why people tune in to watch baseball. It's quite the opposite, in fact. People watch sports to escape politics, to escape all of the horrible things that we're experiencing in society as a whole. So they got it right. And I think that it also is very indicative of where their mindset is, which is in the right place, because they are still involved in certain LGBT causes. Because I think it's very important to point out, and I think most people realize that it's the T and the Q that is causing most of the problems that we are realizing within this community. It's not like we don't want people to have equal rights and to live life as happy as they can. We want that. And we were working towards that. And I think we achieved that in most every facet. But now you have these other people that are coming out and trying to just disrupt society, tear down any type of traditional value. But you saw the Rangers, they still do give back in ways that make sense and support that community in the right way, doing it in the right manner. It's not just putting on a Pride night for the sake of saying, oh, we're here for Pride, and then honoring a group that does nothing but mock nuns and the Christian religion. So go Rangers.
Yeah, and I mean they fundraise, which is why they received a community award, but they do so by spitting in the face of Catholicism. And had it been an anti-Muslim or anti-Jewish
Gosh,
group,
could you imagine the blowback?
This wouldn't have been the case. And I think that's look. Do whatever you want. I'm with Chad. All are welcome in the stadium. When I go to a stadium, I don't care who I'm sitting next to. And by and large, the fans that showed up to attendance, it was a Dodgers-Giants game, so it was well attended last year. Paid attendance this year was fine.
Down about 5,000.
And by the end of the game, based on Ian's photo at OutKick, it looked much better than it did at the start of the game based on traffic and everything else that takes place. But I don't know why you cause controversy and a distraction all for the sake of making sure everyone's happy instead of the fan base and also the players that came out in support of their faith more than support of whatever honor and community award was being handed out by their team. They were also ignored in this, which is just it's puzzling how easy you can step over something like this when if it's any other faith, it's just not accepted.
Yeah, I mean, if you are a conservative African American or a Christian in this country, you have no rights to be protected. That's kind of what it seems to be at this point in time.
Well, yeah, you have the rights, but you also are told to tolerate, and that's the fans that showed up, and on any other night it's not Pride Night, but it should be a baseball game.
I'm ready for the.
And I'm with you. I want sports without politics. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
11 days to go. Okay, we can do this. 11 more days. Okay, and there's already a lot of companies like Starbucks, for example, that have completely just backed out. They're like, you know what? Pride goes a month. We are going to gracefully excuse ourselves from this conversation. No more Pride memorabilia. No more mentioning of it in stores. And we know Starbucks is one of the most woke companies out there, but they don't want the smoke. Okay, they don't want people coming at them. Some people just want to come in and get their coffee. They're not looking for propaganda. They're not looking for an agenda to be pushed into their faces. And I think a lot of businesses would be very wise if they took the same course.
Well, and just stop the self-inflicted wounds. Giants-Dodgers should be about Giants-Dodgers. Let's get back to the sports being about the sports. I want to see the sport be about the game that's there, and they made it about something else that everyone's talking about. And no one made them do that. It was just such a dumb decision to make it about more than that. Yes, thank you. I need some cap raises going on. I need to find some money people to help me get the money to own a team one day, Hutton.
How is Bud Light going to get it back on track, Charlie?
I mean, it'll take a miracle because there's no incentive for people to get back on the Bud Light train. Drink Coors Light, drink Busch Light, drink Natty Light, drink Miller Light. They're all there and they cost the same.
But Busch and Natty are owned by Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah,
so you're still giving the money to them.
It's still going to that Belgian company.
Here's the thing is I think though a lot of people aren't so cognizant of who owns the beers because even Modelo, which now has the #1 spot, Modelo is owned by AB everywhere except the US. So listen, it's interesting because we put Modelo in top place where, in the US it means something, but Anheuser-Busch is still doing just fine. We all know that, but it's the sentiment of the boycott actually working. I think conservatives are so sick of people doing this type of thing to them because it's been happening for years and years. And all conservatives have done up to this point is kind of just roll their eyes and then just forget about it. And companies think like, okay, we can take advantage of this group and they're not going to do anything. Well, guess what? That's completely untrue. And now we have seen with Bud Light, with Target, with Kohl's, there's several people that have gone down the wrong path that conservatives aren't just going to roll over and die. Like this is something they feel very strongly about and money talks. And we've seen these companies, these major corporations lose billions and billions of dollars and the bleeding doesn't look to be stopping anytime soon.
And Chad, this was all, if you follow InBev, this is all like a big conspiracy theory for them to be able to cut salaries and cut jobs.
Tommy Lahren had a guest on, an anonymous employee of InBev of Anheuser-Busch that claims this was a self-sabotage to tank sales and Bud Light in order to lay off American workers and end their benefits. I hope that's not the case because I think there's a lot of people out there that have nothing to do with this decision that may have lost their jobs because of this boycott also, which I hope didn't happen.
I can't speak to whether or not this employee knows what they're talking about at all, but to me, that just seems like a crazy road to go down to achieve that type of goal. I mean, listen, if you got to make layoffs, if you got to cut jobs for whatever reason, then you do that. I mean, that's what it means to run a business. Hopefully they have competent enough people who realize that you don't need to sink your business and make decisions that are going to affect how everybody views your product just to cut some jobs. Listen, if that's true, then I am baffled. And I feel like I could run a beverage company, an international beverage company, better than they are apparently.
I'll run the team, Charlie. You run the international beverage company.
God, you know what? This is a match
together we'll
made in
make a
heaven.
ton of money making this happen. I will only sell your beverages at my ballpark when I own the team, and then we'll just funnel money in that way.
I'm totally in. I just feel like Jonathan now needs some type of like, what position are you going to have? Because listen, we've got some deal worked out.
Broadcaster.
You would like to still.
I just want to call the game.
Hutton's the food magnet. He'll have all the concessionaires.
Yeah.
He'll have all the food.
You
He'll
guys
make
can deal with all the
sausage,
drama and the BS. I'll just show up and
dogs.
call the games.
Hutton's our play-by-play guy. There we go.
And,
we got
and
it.
then can you double as PR? Like if for whatever reason, Chad or one of I slip up, like, just something small, but we need
sure.
damage control. You can also like smooth it all over for us.
I will need a team of publicists. It'll have to be more than just Hutton. I'll need a team of people working in a room.
We need an eraser
on their cell phone to make sure that I get covered with whatever publicity needs I have.
Charlie, great stuff as always. Thank you for being a very special guest this week.
Very special.
We'll do it again next Monday.
Very special.
Have a great week.
Thank you, Charlie.
Bye.
Charlie Arnold, OutKick host. Her show starting soon. Chad, our show continues when we come back. And we've got plenty to discuss with Davey Hudson, who brings the weirdest headlines from the weekend. It's all straight ahead on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network.
What is your primary complaint when people pop their knuckles?
Primary complaint is chewing with your mouth open. Yuck.
I would say when you're getting off an airplane and people in the back try and sprint to the front, especially like late at night, like you don't have a connecting flight, just wait like everybody else. I'd say that's fine.
Small portions, big bill. Yeah, if the quality's good, it's okay. But if there's small portions and I got a big fat bill, not a thing,
Sun Country Airlines canceling our flight less than 8 hours before we're supposed to leave.
I've never even heard of Sun Country Airlines in my life.
Velcro.
Velcro? Why? What about it?
The sound.
Oh, like nails on a chalkboard for you.
I'm a kindergarten teacher, and to hear that Velcro.
Time to teach them how to tie their shoes.
When they don't cross the road when no cars are driving.
They're just waiting for the light?
Yeah, like a normal person.
Yeah, you got to break the rules a little bit.
We're right from New York City. We know how to walk.
Really upset. Ben Jones is no longer with the Titans, but more importantly, I'm upset the Titans didn't draft a wide receiver in the top 2 rounds. We need receivers, guys. Come on, tighten up.
So what do you think about Will Levis? Was that a good move or a bad move?
Ooh, that's a tough call. Time will tell. But I think we needed a receiver more.
Smack their gum, chew with their mouth open and smack their gum.
Okay.
That with chips and everything else, yeah.
Liars.
Liars, okay. Has anyone lied to you recently?
No.
Have you lied?
Always.
One of the biggest pet peeves is not knowing your manners. Like, not having respect or thank you, sir, ma'am.
My biggest pet peeve is when you don't push your chair in after you leave a table. That's my biggest pet peeve. Really?
So like when people want to speak to you and they're like you to me, but they start walking out of the other room into different rooms and they keep talking like, I am supposed to understand. I can't hardly understand people when their back is turned to me and when they're not talking right at me. So when you're getting into different rooms and you keep talking like, yeah, blah, 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 it must be my dog talking to me.
There's a crane over every building. There's a truck.
There's a hole, something. Yeah. So let's get the streets fixed and get those things done. Time's wasted. Let's go.
A dirty house.
Dirty house. Like, are you a shoes off at the front door kind of guy?
Front, yes, man.
I hate it when centre backs don't bat the odd one. Do you know,
What?
when the centre backs go up to try and catch the ball all the time, they should bat the odd one.
You know, siblings are pet peeves, you know, to be honest with you. You know, just looking at him, he's a pet peeve.
I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I like to get along with others. I kind of leave people in their place. When people don't follow the social construct, it really upsets me. Example, when you stand up on an airplane, right when it lands, and then try to push past people down the line. You know what orders you're supposed to go in. That's the part of the social contract. When you're grocery shopping and you have your cart and you don't take it back to the cart delivery spot, but you just leave it by there beside the parking spot, taking up someone else's spot, violating the social contract. Do what you're supposed to. Yeah, do your civic duty. Follow through with what your parents told you to do.
Skip Holtz will join us coming up in about 40 minutes from now. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Shout out to the great OutKick staff for making it happen today. Everyone that's joined Chad in the chat as well on the OutKick channel on YouTube. Hope you subscribe there while you're there. Give us a thumbs up, like the page. And is it on fire? Is it continuing to...
I haven't looked in a second. I'm trying to get some other things together here, including my computer, trying to get it operating properly because it just locked up and I had to restart it. That sound you heard in the middle of one of the segments about 20 minutes ago was my computer restarting because it keeps locking up. You'll probably hear it again before the end of the show.
Bad sign.
I just want to let the audience know exactly when my computer is screwing up. You'll hear that sound again.
Did you do an update recently on your laptop?
No.
I see. I'm a believer in Apple product sabotage, self-sabotage on their behalf.
I swear it is something.
Through the updates.
It is something here. Like this room is haunted for this computer. If I get in this facility at 6th and Peabody, my computer starts to act very funky.
This venue used
to
be a haunted
up,
house.
It doesn't load. I have to restart it over and over again. There's something about right here, right now, that screws up my computer every day we do
Let me
the show.
guess, it's a Civil War soldier from 1865 that's doing it?
It's weird that I saw Stonewall Jackson wander through this doorway right there.
There was no one from
and then my computer wouldn't work.
And no one from 2004 that was doing this. Or
There's a lot of
2006.
new info about, maybe this will be in our Let's Get Weird coming up, but there's a lot of new info about aliens and spacecraft and just...
I have that saved for a later one, but we're not using that today.
It's just weird that this like anonymous people... I talked to... there was one story I read that was... I talked to an intelligence officer of over 35 years, and I brought to them what this whistleblower said about American government having in their possession spacecraft, dead alien bodies have been recovered. And the guy just calmly said, yeah, that's exactly what I've heard too. That tracks with what I know in the government. I'm thinking, I guess if you've known about the existence of aliens for so long, you'd be nonchalant about it. But I just felt like it was very nonchalant having read the article and the quote from the anonymous intelligence official. Anyway, we'll get into it
another time. Didn't you see
time.
Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
I did.
Independence Day?
That unlocked a lot. Yeah.
Men in Black?
E.T. We can keep going.
We will with the strangest stories of the week. And time to get weird with Davey Hudson.
Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Weird, get weird.
Where are we starting today, Davey?
Chad, first off, I hope you gentlemen had a fantastic weekend. We're actually going to go to the land down under, and we're going to Australia to talk about an OnlyFans model who is upset because her neighbors want her kicked out of her gated community because apparently she's been posting content, posing in her backyard, and it's to where other people can see it, and they're not very fond of this. Now, Teasing Tammy, as she's known on TikTok, has come out.
Teasing Tammy?
Teasing Tammy. She's come out on TikTok, and
She
said,
looks like Paige Van Zandt to me, the former UFC fighter.
Yeah, a little bit.
Who's also on OnlyFans and quit UFC because she's making more money to do that.
Well, she's not happy, and she's trying to plot her revenge, as you can see based off this post. But it's one of those things to where, she's just trying to provide for her family, make sure she has the room. But again, she said she's got clothes on at all times. Where do you draw the line on what is inappropriate for in your backyard you can and cannot do?
Do we have further details about what's going on? Because here's where I would draw the line.
It depends where this is taking place, Chad.
If she's just in her own backyard in a bikini taking selfies or just videos of herself without making noises, and she's sending that, then they have no right to be upset with her for doing that, even if she's making money off OnlyFans or whatever.
Yeah.
But if she's running a brothel out of her backyard, or she's making a lot of uncomfortable sounds, if you know what I mean, for the whole neighborhood to hear with kids around, then yeah, the neighborhood should get the HOA together and probably work on voting her out of the neighborhood.
It's a gated community. It's got to be. There's a certain standard. Meanwhile, where you drive down from the farm where I grew up, and you can see someone mowing their yard and something like this.
Yeah,
with about half as many tattoos.
If you want to walk around in a very revealing swimsuit in your own yard where everyone can see, do that all day long.
Well, you know what
do whatever
this
you
is.
want. It's your property.
Well, she's saying
these are the housewives who are upset because their husbands are looking out the window.
Their husbands are probably subscribers.
That's what this is.
That's the problem.
She's saying that what she's been posting from her backyard only goes on TikTok, so it can't be too X-rated, or else it would go against the TOS terms of service for TikTok. So
how much money is she making?
It says she makes $137,000 a year.
That's good. Not bad. Not as much as some of the other.
It's not a very
OnlyFans professionals we've seen.
Not a very high-end gated community.
No, and I think Hutton's onto something. It's probably a husband in the neighborhood that is a subscriber.
That's exactly
and
it.
And then, or the really nosy Nancy's, as I call them, in the neighborhood are following her on TikTok and saying, "Oh, that's by her kid's slide in the backyard. We can't have this pose right here."
It's like the movie Friday.
Yeah.
The housewife across the street.
Yep.
Well, we're going to stick with the OnlyFans theme. We go now to this is a California woman, Mormon mom Holly Jane. Now, she's gotten into a little bit of a pickle because she has been found out by her church that she does OnlyFans, and the church told her they don't want her coming back anymore, and so she's basically having to choose between OnlyFans or the church.
All right, so I'm seeing the preview of this this Holly Jane. That's her name.
Yeah, that's the only picture I pulled for this one.
Initial reaction to both women. Show me the line of men who are paying for photos from these two.
She's 39, and she made $500,000 last year.
So, again, I read a story earlier on OutKick that turned out to be misleading. But I did read this story at OutKick about what she's doing, and I will say this:
$500K.
She is apparently paid to sext with people. She said she's dropping her kids off at events, and when she has an extra second, she will get on and she is paid to flirt with guys and send them selfies and do things like that from the grocery store, from wherever she's going around. Is that banned from church-worthy stuff? I don't know the Mormon faith
Churches
that well.
are too soft nowadays. Like, I mean, everyone's like, oh, you can do whatever you want. But at the end of the day, like, we got rules, all right? Like, you're supposed to stick by these rules. If you break them, I understand why certain churches.
They draw the line at Bravo,
Well,
okay?
look,
There's a Real Housewives of Utah or Salt Lake. That's where they draw the line.
I'm a Christian. I go to a Christian church. We don't kick anyone out of church for sinning, right? There's no getting kicked out of the church. You're welcome to go to the church in my faith. So I don't know the guidelines of the Mormon faith as to what would get her kicked out of church.
She did accidentally
And what does kicked out of
airdrop-
church mean? Like she can't, they're going to lock the door. They have security stop her on the way into church service?
She did accidentally airdrop some of her nudes to some people by hitting the select all instead of, I don't airdrop a lot of stuff.
Westboro Baptist would kick her out.
I'm not sure what that is.
That's the church that they always show up to, like funerals of soldiers, and just always try to have the most explicit and offensive language possible in the hopes that someone assaults them, then they sue and they make money, and that's how they build up
One of the main daughters, quit the church and is now speaking out against it.
Oh yeah, I've got a false
Maybe
prophet.
she's back in now.
I've got a false prophet church 2 miles from my house I'm dealing with right now that's going to end in a David Koresh, Waco type setup at some point. It's a church that basically worships Donald Trump as their god. I'm pretty sure. It's
Really?
about 2 miles from where I live. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Branch
These are the people
Davidians?
that come and eventually will burn in hell. Trust me, this guy will. This is the worst of their kind. What now, Davey?
What are your thoughts on the Branch Davidians? Where do they rank in your cults? You know, everybody should have a good cult ranking.
There is a podcast called Cults that I listened to for a while. I'm fascinated with cults, and there was a cult in the woods of Quebec that is the craziest, weirdest cult of all time, and I forget the guy's name that started it, but that's one I would look up first. The Branch Davidians are the most famous, but not the craziest. There are far crazier stories of cults than David Koresh.
Scientologists.
Is it Rosh Thurot?
That's it. That's the guy's. I remember it was a French name.
Final one?
Oh, yeah, and our final story. We stick with OnlyFans. We're going with the other gender here, though. Hugh Hefner's son, Marston, I think is how you pronounce his name. He has joined OnlyFans, but probably not for the reason you might think. He's actually trying to collect a rare Pokemon card, so he decided to turn to OnlyFans in hopes of raising enough money. And this card apparently is at least 6 figures, so he thinks he can get up to $100,000 to where he's able to purchase this. His wife's not too happy with him. And
divorce him. Here's my advice to the wife. Like, your husband, you chose to live with this man forever.
No.
And he's joining OnlyFans to get a damn Pokemon card because he's obsessed with Pokemon.
He's Hugh Hefner's son, and he's needing to raise money to buy a $100,000 Pokemon card?
Hugh Hefner is rolling over in his grave. We just saw a golf tournament with the Playboy Mansion overlooking the 14th green. And the man who started the Playboy Mansion's son is joining OnlyFans because of his Pokemon obsession. If you want to talk about the generations getting worse and dumber, this may be the greatest example yet.
He's looking
Hugh Hefner's son is obsessed with Pokemon.
He's looking for a
He only had
Pokemon
4
trophy
kids.
card. Huh.
He only had 4 kids, so I'm thinking
that we know of.
4 that can claim
Legitimate.
that they could just jump on. 4 that have Hefner as their last name. Let's put it that way.
They apparently had one card go for $300,000 earlier this year.
Well, Logan Paul or Jake Paul won. It was Logan Paul that wore the $7 million Pokemon card to the ring at WWE or something.
We're getting some.
I briefly remember.
We're getting some great cult info from the YouTube chat. Allie says Westboro, their belief is that anything bad that happens in the world is a punishment from God. Most Westboro members all stem from the founding grandfather of the church.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the founding grandfather. People, we got votes coming in for favorite cults. Jim Jones is a very popular one with the Kool-Aid.
Is that French Ghana?
Yes, down in South America, where he made his followers drink the Kool-Aid. That is a good one. There's a really good documentary, I think it's on Netflix, about Jonestown. I think there's also like a dramatic show about it on Netflix.
Was that the only time a U.S. senator has been killed overseas?
Yes. Yeah. I think you're right.
I can't remember his name, but I'm pretty sure he represented Kansas.
Steve Kerr's dad was assassinated in Israel or Lebanon, but he was an ambassador. But his father was assassinated while he was in high school. All these facts just rolling right through now. And let's get weird today.
How many cults are active?
Oh,
Do we know?
more than you can count.
Well, I'm sure.
Well, how do you get like the church that I'm talking about with the lunatic guy that's close to my house, it's a cult. I mean, he's twisting scripture to his will, and he's turned it into a cult, and that's usually what happens. Take something in the biblical realm and twist it into a cult.
Make it fit whatever narrative you want.
So how do you get labeled a cult? Like, how does that become official? I think some sort of crime has to happen.
Or someone quits the church and then has outs them.
Yeah.
So Leo Ryan was the U.S. congressman that was killed in Jonestown. He was not a senator. Just make that distinction real quick.
Roy says the Swifties are a cult.
They're selling rainwater from her shows. They've bottled the rainwater. It's going for hundreds of dollars.
If they gather for a ceremony,
probably more,
then they would be a cult. But I don't think they gather weekly for a service to Taylor Swift.
They would,
unless you
There's
call
a
the
shrine
concert
somewhere.
Service. They would kill for her and bury the body.
They would definitely do that.
And not say a word about it. Coming up, Bob Huggins retires. He had to resign because of the DUI charges over the weekend. We'll dive in there. What's next for West Virginia? And the U.S. Open, did it deliver? That's next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in the land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Old taste of the Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow.
And we are
across
so
the
excited
OutKick
about the final hour that we're starting it a minute early.
We are.
Every hour on the hour, That's our delivery to you. We're so excited to get going. We'll start at 1 minute before the hour even starts. Every single time. How about that?
For today only.
Hey, let's applaud ourselves
Today
right now.
only.
Look at that. We're just working harder than everyone else out there. Working harder than everyone else.
Amazing.
You know how you can tell a hard worker when they tell you how hard they're working. That's usually the telltale sign.
That's
how hard of a worker
That's how
they are.
you find a fake.
That's how you know. Yeah.
So you
That's
find
how
a
you know.
fake right there.
Yep.
No fake for Skip Holtz. Championship last year, back in it for the USFL. The head coach of the Birmingham Stallions, Skip Holtz, longtime college football coach, and of course the son of Lou Holtz. He will join us coming up in 20 minutes or so. Looking forward to that chat. Chad, longtime coach at West Virginia, 16 years. Bob Huggins, West Virginia, his alma mater, and over 900 wins combined throughout his college basketball career. Naismith Basketball Hall of Famer. Long overdue, even considering that there's no championship by his name. What a pitiful way to end that career over the last month and a half, 2 months, and the saga that's gone down with the Cincinnati radio appearance where he says homophobic slurs, the same word
slurs,
over and over.
Slurs, by the way, is the right term.
Yeah,
because he said it while slurring.
Yeah, and it was just I didn't expect him to keep his job when the news broke that day, and he did. And the final straw, at least from the West Virginia perspective, where perception for me is reality, I'm looking from the 30,000-foot view, is the DUI charges over the weekend in Pittsburgh, where he doesn't know where he is, how he got there. He told police, and they asked him 10 different times, at least 10 different times on body cam, where he was, where he thought he was. And the best guess was Columbus, is what he said. Columbus, Ohio, which is like 131 miles in an opposite direction of the way he traveled. It's sad. It's also, I know a lot of people get angry over this with the DUI. It's the second one of his career, of his life, but of his basketball career. And a year after he was pulled over, I believe, for his first one, Chat, he resigned from Cincinnati. A year after, roughly, that led to kind of the fallout there.
I think 2004 was his last DUI while coaching at Cincinnati.
Yeah, and he's been at West Virginia since when? 2005 or 6,
Shortly
right?
after,
So it's
I think
right
06.
there. Yeah, so I mean, it's just it's pitiful. That's how I would describe the way he goes into retirement. And the handling of this from the West Virginia standpoint. Did they get a pass based on how this all went down? They practically they didn't ignore what happened on Cincinnati radio, but they ignored what happened on Cincinnati radio, right? They docked his pay by $1 million. They put his contract on a year-to-year basis when the sentiment was from those that were covering the game and that are insiders within college basketball, they thought he was on his way out anyway after next season, and this was the parachute. And instead, it happens immediately. And I guess the questions will be answered based on who they hire next and how quickly they go about this process, given the fact that, I mean, they're already late to the party for this. This is not the time to be hiring your next men's basketball coach. But also, like, if it was already written in or at least assumed that someone on his staff was going to be elevated to take over a year from now anyway, that's the direction they're going to go. And I think that will confirm all of the assumptions at that point.
West Virginia, one of the few places where you can get away with what Bob Huggins did for as long as he did. And then when it comes public like that, when we heard that interview on the Cincinnati radio station with the multiple homophobic slurs, I thought what everyone would think, especially in 2023, when you see something that public is, well, this guy's going to get fired immediately. And he wasn't. Why? Because Morgantown, West Virginia is very different from most places in America, especially one that has a high-profile university located on the grounds of the city. So they were able to insulate things and keep it out of the spotlight and do exactly what they wanted, and exactly what they wanted was to retain Bob Huggins against all charges coming against him from the public, from everyone else. You've heard Dan Dockich on this OutKick network talk a lot about Bob Huggins and some of the shortcomings with him also. And then to have Bob Huggins, after really getting a break in all this, that he was able to continue to be employed after the interview, just a short time later, have this happen. And you said the right word. It's sad. It's just a really sad ending to what was a very successful career for a really good basketball coach. Wherever he ended up, he did a good job. But, man, this is...
It's definitely insulating there. Because
this is not the end of a job, too. It's the end of a career. You know, this is not just the end of a stint early in your career where you can come back. There's no professional coming back from this. And to me, that's what's really sad about the whole situation. And
given his age, I think there's a professional coming back.
I hope he figures things out and gets better. And
if this were 10 years ago, meaning his age, he's going to be 70 soon. Like, I don't think there's another spot for him.
Yeah, look, I hope.
But I do. If Chris Beard is
good,
immediately hired, he could be, right? But
I don't know, because again, Chris Beard is one big, very bad, but one big incident. This Bob Huggins thing.
Yeah, you're right.
People that know. And I go back and listen to the interview.
Well, I know.
The guy sounded drunk in the morning.
West Virginia knew
when he did it. That's what's so crazy is that.
But the insulation.
He must be really good with people.
But
very intimidating.
But I don't know how
he wouldn't have lost his job.
I've never met him. He doesn't come across as a very friendly guy. So I don't know how he.
I think he can be very charming.
That.
I think he can be very charming. Watch him in interviews and with people and
hearing
about stories of him with recruits. He can be very, very charming.
But we have friends in Birmingham who've been cussed out by him for no reason, really.
Yeah,
for following signs in a athletic facility at Cincinnati.
Yeah, Nick Saban's the same way. I mean, he's an absolute jerk when he wants to be, but he can also turn on the charm.
Yeah, but
and be
he's
great
a champion, a multi-champion. There's a difference there with Huggins. It's just like, and I get his alma mater.
He's not an alcoholic. Also, Nick Saban. I mean, that's my whole thing. Is Bob Huggins. His career is great, and he wasn't at a ton of places that have won at the highest level, and he's done a good job. So on court has been fine, but my big question mark is, if you are someone who's been around Bob Huggins and you heard that interview, you've heard those words from him routinely, probably before, but you've also been around him when he's really drunk, and you probably knew that was the case also. So to have that much faith in someone or to like them enough to say, we're going to give you a slap on the wrist and you're going to come back, then to have this blow up in your face like this, it just makes.
And he has a lot of people defending,
it's
not
a
defending
sad
him,
ending to a career,
but trying to form or phrase this whole departure a certain way. Like the reporting that the players are extremely upset, like devastated that he's stepping away, despite all of this. It's you mentioned it. It's insulating. I think that's a perfect way to describe the basketball program.
And it's sad. It's a sad end to the professional part of his life, and I only hope and pray that the rest of his life is successful, that he gets things figured out, and that he's got a successful end to his actual life and not his basketball life. Because the end of the basketball life is pathetic and sad.
Yep. Wyndham Clark wins the U.S. Open at Los Angeles Country Club by a stroke over Rory McIlroy. And, Chad, I just came to the realization midway through the final round yesterday, right before Rory he fell back by 3 strokes. He was tied at the time, I believe. But around that time, I'm thinking, man, I'm pulling for Rory and not the American. I feel odd doing this, but I'm all in on McIlroy and not Wyndham Clark with a chance for him to win his first. I guess Ricky Fowler would have been a great story, but I saw McIlroy make a move, and I'm thinking, all aboard. The Rory, jump on board the momentum here, and not the story that Wyndham Clark became yesterday by winning his first major after making the cut at the U.S. Open for the first time. Previously on any major, he had finished no better than 75th. I mean, he's an amazing story. But McIlroy's trying to break a 9-year drought of major championships, and I was pulling for him. The putter was not. It let him down. Could do no better than par over the final 5 holes, and despite back-to-back bogeys for Wyndham Clark, he hangs on with a great putt that was, 57 feet away from the hole. It puts it right next to the cup, tap in.
Perfect lag putt.
Yes, there's your U.S. Open champion. A couple of things. and takeaways. Number one, CBS and Jim Nantz, as far as golf coverage goes, I don't appreciate what they do until they're not calling the major championships. I far prefer the CBS broadcast over what we saw this weekend with NBC. By far.
The NBC picture-in-picture looks like something from an era where picture-in-picture just became a thing. It is so outdated looking. Just their graphics.
Yeah, but like
do you notice that when they would go live on each hole, and there was all of this like empty space
you're
in the
right,
boxes
there was.
instead of a split screen? And I'm like, I can't even see what's going on the individual holes because you put them in two tiny boxes. It's as if they've not done golf before. I was extremely embarrassed for NBC on some of the coverage, and even the little highlight thing that'll go on the leaderboard and flash over the name as they do it. I was not overly impressed. Now, I was impressed with Dan Hicks making the joke about when they got to the 14th hole, and it's the Playboy Mansion over top, and they had a great shot leading up there. He's like, there's some action. He's like, and right behind this hole, I've seen a lot of action over the years also. That's the Playboy Mansion
and
back there. Now, that was good.
Dan Hicks did a fine job.
Yeah, he's good.
But I just, to me, it felt like a broadcast for the Kentucky Derby and not the U.S. Open. You know, they were going around the course early, and I realize it's a primetime event. They're trying to take advantage of the rating there. They're pushing the guys at the top of the leaderboard, not the guys who are just finishing off the final round of their Sunday afternoon in Los Angeles. But I'd rather just watch some of the bigger names that weren't playing as well. I'd rather see more of John Rahm than some golf expert tell me about the undulation on the 15th hole and how it's going to be a tough play on the back of the green 5 hours from now whenever Ricky Fowler tees off. That felt like a Kentucky Derby broadcast. Pimping out the actual race instead of, how many times can you make a mint julep every year? That's kind of what this U.S. Open broadcast was for NBC for me.
I thought one area where they did a good job was hammering home the story about Wyndham Clark's mother and sort of his personal story throughout the round. I like not everybody gets in that. I like the human interest side of it in sports, especially with golf, instead of some of the technical stuff. I really enjoyed that part with the NBC coverage. I did post the question, Hutton, if it's fair or foul to root for a non-American in the U.S. Open if you're an American golf fan. And the first response is from David, who says, it's golf, not team sports. Root for whoever you would like in that setting.
It's not the Ryder Cup. I get all that. But
I don't think there should be a hard and fast rule for it. I will say I'm normally rooting for the American Challenger if there's an American close to the top of the leaderboard.
I didn't notice it for about 10 holes, though.
I'm not hearing you saying I'll root for Rory McIlroy and I'm disgusted or anything with that because 9 times out of 10, when I don't have a dog in the hunt, I'm rooting for the story. And to me, the story would have been lapdog Rory McIlroy gets egg on his face after his daddy, Jay Monahan, in the PGA, merges with LIV Tour, and he made fun of LIV for a year, then rallies and wins the U.S. Open 2 weeks later. Like, that's a story. That's a big-time story had that happen. And instead, the story becomes more the same for Rory McIlroy. He's a guy he's not clutch. He can't hit putts when it matters on the Sunday of a major, and it cost him once again. And Wyndham Clark did just enough. Wasn't terrific, but he did enough on Sunday to hold him off and win.
Just one other quick observation. Los Angeles Country Club may be great in person, and they had some great backdrops. It's a beautiful course. I didn't get the sense that they actually cared that the U.S. Open was there. That they limited fan attendance, not by tickets, but the fact that they had 14,000 of the 23 or 24,000 that they allowed on sale. 14 of them were for hospitality, 14,000 hospitality tickets behind the scenes, behind the ropes access to the LA Country Club, and not the general admission tickets that you see at the U.S. Open, where it makes for a great fan atmosphere and it's loud and obnoxious and awesome. I didn't get that same vibe. But also, this from Zyre Golf. I saw this yesterday, Chad. 320 acres. And we know where it sits and everything that surrounds it.
It's in the middle of Beverly Hills.
So they have a $250,000 initiation fee. if you're invited to join their club. The club has a 1,000-page rule book. This is the NCAA here we're talking about. A 1,000-page rule book when you join.
By the way, that rule book exists just so they can throw you out for anything they want and just claim it's one of those rules that everyone violates, but they're only going to do it if you do something that they just don't want you in the club anymore.
So the land alone, the property alone, is worth $8 billion.
Oh, my gosh.
It's the second most valuable piece of real estate not developed for housing behind Central Park in New York City. It's Los Angeles Country Club. Think about that.
That's crazy.
$8 billion. But here's the craziest part. The $8 billion land value typically would mean hundreds of millions of dollars in property tax alone. And consider it's in California. They pay annually on an $8 billion estimated property value, $220,000 in taxes.
How?
That is...
How do they do that? Is it just a grandfathered in deal with the city?
I mean...
Like, who owns LA Country Club? I'd like to know the ownership group now also.
You're not allowed to know.
I mean, that is crazy.
$220,000 in annual taxes on an $8 billion piece of property, second only to Central Park.
I like that.
Private club that didn't even want the U.S. Open there to begin with, and then Jay Monahan bows out 2 weeks prior to the tee time on Thursday. They didn't even allow guys into, you typically, if you're not playing like in the Canadian Open or whatever, you would fly out and play the course like we saw in Tulsa last year. Fly out and play the course throughout the year whenever you have a weekend off or a Monday or Tuesday prior to going to your next tournament. They didn't have that option this year. Weird that they chose a spot that had really lobbied against it, quite frankly. And they proved it by buying up all the tickets so the general public couldn't get in.
I'm excited to see it go back to a place where they're excited to host the event.
Right there with you. Skip Holtz, he's back in the playoffs. We hear from the Birmingham USFL head coach, plus we'll get his opinion on where we're headed in college football.
What is your primary complaint when people pop their knuckles?
Primary complaint is chewing with your mouth open. Yuck.
I would say when you're getting off an airplane and people in the back try and sprint to the front, especially like late at night, like you don't have a connecting flight, just wait like everybody else. I'd say that's fine.
Small portions, big bill. Yeah, if the quality's good, it's okay. But if there's small portions and I got a big fat bill, not a thing,
Sun Country Airlines canceling our flight less than 8 hours before we're supposed to leave.
I've never even heard of Sun Country Airlines in my life.
Velcro.
Velcro? Why? What about it?
The sound.
Oh, like nails on a chalkboard for you.
I'm a kindergarten teacher, and to hear that Velcro.
Time to teach them how to tie their shoes.
When they don't cross the road when no cars are driving.
They're just waiting for the light?
Yeah, like a normal person.
Yeah, you got to break the rules a little bit.
We're right from New York City. We know how to walk.
Really upset. Ben Jones is no longer with the Titans, but more importantly, I'm upset the Titans didn't draft a wide receiver in the top 2 rounds. We need receivers, guys. Come on, tighten up.
So what do you think about Will Levis? Was that a good move or a bad move?
Ooh, that's a tough call. Time will tell. But I think we needed a receiver more.
Smack their gum, chew with their mouth open and smack their gum.
Okay.
That with chips and everything else, yeah.
Liars.
Liars, okay. Has anyone lied to you recently?
No.
Have you lied?
Always.
One of the biggest pet peeves is not knowing your manners. Like, not having respect or thank you, sir, ma'am.
My biggest pet peeve is when you don't push your chair in after you leave a table. That's my biggest pet peeve. Really is.
So like when people want to speak to you and they're like you to me, but they start walking out of the other room into different rooms, and they keep talking like, I am supposed to understand. I can't hardly understand people when their back is turned to me, when they're not talking right at me. So when you're getting into different rooms and you keep talking like, yeah, blah, 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 it must be my dog talking to me.
There's a crane over every building. There's a truck.
There's a whole something. Yeah. So let's get the streets fixed and get those things done. Time's wasted. Let's go.
A dirty house.
Dirty house. Like, are you a shoes off at the front door kind of guy?
Front, yes, ma'am.
I hate it when centre backs don't bat the odd one. Do you know, when the centre backs go up to try and catch the ball all the time, they should bat the odd one.
You know, siblings are pet peeves, you know, to be honest with you. Just looking at him, he's a pet peeve.
I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I like to get along with others. I kind of leave people in their place. When people don't follow the social construct, it really upsets me. Example, when you stand up on an airplane, right, when it lands, and then try to push past people down the line. You know what orders you're supposed to go in. That's the part of the social contract. When you're grocery shopping and you have your cart and you don't take it back to the cart delivery spot, but you just leave it there beside the parking spot, taking up someone else's spot, violating the social contract. Do what you're supposed to. Yeah, do your civic duty. Follow through with what your parents told you to do.
Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here on the OutKick Network. 6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Just south of us, Coach Skip Holtz joins us. Birmingham, the Stallions, back in the postseason, officially defending their USFL championship from last year, and this year hosting a USFL playoff game. Number 1 seed in the South Division. I mean, we shouldn't have expected anything less. Coach and his team making it look easy.
Dominating the league
now
for the second straight year.
Year 2. By the way, back-to-back playoff game starts on Saturday, NBC and Peacock, and that will be the North Division Championship. And then on Sunday on Fox, Birmingham and New Orleans, they will kick off at the UAB Stadium there. Coach, great to have you back on, and I hope things are well. Congratulations on certainly following up last year with another very successful regular season.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. It's great to be back with you guys again this year. It has not been easy getting here. You know, there have been an awful lot of changes. I know a lot of people want to try and compare this team to last year's team, but it's so different in so many different ways and so many new faces that are on this roster. I thoroughly enjoyed last year, and I mean, the run that we had and the success we were able to have on the field was awesome, and the support we received from it. But this year, what I didn't realize is how much turnover there is from year 1 to year 2 in a lot of these spring sports. I mean, a lot of these guys are here to try and get another opportunity, and we had a number of them that got their opportunity in the NFL, and some guys are just ready to move on. And so a lot of new faces, but I'm certainly proud of what these guys have been able to accomplish and just the culture that's been built and the success that they've been able to have on the field.
Coach, I think you'll understand where I'm going with this, but Chad and I were heavily involved last year through the draft of the USFL and everything else that went on. And I was curious going into that because there were a lot of uncertainties, especially the head coaches that didn't really know how things would be structured as they got things going. What was the strategy that you went into as you built your roster? And do you think you figured out something that others didn't early on that allow you to be 17-3 in the regular season through 2 seasons?
Well, I think we came when it first started. I mean, we were in February last year. We didn't have a player on our roster. You know, we were coaches with no team. Yeah. It was kind of an eerie thing going into it. And you kept telling yourself, you know, in 60 days, we got to play a game, and we don't even have a player on our roster yet. And so it it was unique in the way that it happened. But what we did was I brought the staff down to our home in Florida, and we spent a week just watching film. And we put together our kind of like our draft picks, the order that we liked our position players by from every position on the roster. And then every coach went home and called the top 10 players at his position and then called me back, and we re-ranked them all. And we drafted not only players, but we drafted people. And it's one of the things that I learned in college recruiting after all those years is the formula for success is much deeper than a combine. It's much deeper than height, weight, vertical jump, speed, how much you can bench press, etc. So much of it is about kind of will and want to and desire, and what's their why? Why do they want to play the game? What do they love about the game? And so once we started interviewing them all, the draft picks changed. And all of a sudden it went from, number 5 was number 1 and number 3 was now number 7. And we re-ranked them all and we drafted people. And just really, it made it a lot of fun. We've got a bunch of great guys on this roster. And then this year, when we went through free agency, we did much of the same thing. It was more about the interview than it was just about their talent level. And I think that's one of the things that's made it so much fun. And it's built a camaraderie and a culture. And I think these guys are really close. They're really together. I love their workman's type attitude. I mean, like last week, we were down 14-3. They return an opening kickoff and then go down and score. We're down 14-3, and nobody panicked. Nobody flinched. There was no bickering on the sideline. People were lifting each other up. It was very positive, and kind of in a workman's type attitude, and just let's go get it done. We got 3 quarters left to make up an 11-point deficit here, and I just think they did a great job. But I think it all starts with the culture and the quality of people and the character of the players that you have in your organization in order to be able to have success. I once heard a statistic that the New England Patriots would only draft players that had graduated from college because it meant that those guys were willing to work and see something through. It's starting to make more and more sense to me now that I've had a little bit of taste of professional ball.
Chad, I think he's describing Scooby Wright at linebacker.
Yeah, certainly a fun guy. Coach,
one of our favorite interviews.
You mentioned in that last answer about players finding their why.
Yes.
How have you found your why these last 2 years? Has it helped you kind of rediscover everything you love about coaching and at this level? And how has that helped you? Because you've certainly been very successful at this.
Well, I got some advice when I was talking to old coach from UCLA. God dog it, his name's leaving me right now. It'll come to me in a second. I'm having my Halfheimer's minute in a second.
Dick Vermeil?
No. But I was Rick Neuheisel. I had called Rick Neuheisel because he had been involved in these spring leagues. And I said, Rick, is this something I ought to get into? Tell me about it. And he said, Skip, you're going to get in. It's a startup league, and everything's not going to be as smooth as you want it to be. And you're not going to be in control of everything like you are in a college program. He said, but when you get involved with it, he said, if you get involved with it because of the relationship with the players, he said, it'll be one of the greatest things you ever did. Go to dinner with a different player every week. Start getting to know these guys a little bit, getting to know them and who they are and why they play. And really, there's a story behind every number that's out there on that field. And I got into it that way last year. My wife and I called it our adventure. And you know what? It was one of the greatest things I've ever done. Honestly, it gave me a joy for coaching again. I've absolutely loved it. I've loved the relationship with the players. It is just kind of a stress-free environment where you have the opportunity to coach, and it's all about giving these players an opportunity to grow and develop because they're all here because they want something. They're not here necessarily as the end. They're here because they want to use this as a stepping stone to get another opportunity into the NFL. Some guys know they may not get another shot, but they just love the game. They love the camaraderie. They love the opportunity to be part of something bigger than them. And you get around those guys and you start to learn their why. And all of a sudden, coaching is just taking on a whole nother. It's not about wins. It's not just about building a program in a college atmosphere, but it's about helping young men grow and develop. And that's the main thing that I have loved so much about it and why I have enjoyed coaching so much and why I'm having probably more fun than I've ever had in coaching.
South Division Championship game this Sunday, June 25th, 6 p.m. Central Time on Fox. Coach, being down there last year, we could definitely tell a difference when Birmingham was playing down in Birmingham. And here's an opportunity to host a playoff game for the first time in 38 years in Birmingham with the Stallions. What has it been like with the city embracing you guys, and what kind of opportunity is this for you to host this game in your hometown?
It's been incredible. I mean, really, the support. Year one, I think there was a lot of people maybe that, is it here to stay? How much am I really going to get involved? Is this going to be a one and done fly-by-night operation, or is this thing really here to stay? And I can tell you, the USFL is here to stay. I mean, with the support that they have right now with Fox and NBC and the things that they're doing right now, and I think Darryl is doing a great job of leading this group. I think it's here to stay, and I think as it continues to go, more and more people are starting to buy in. You're watching attendance as it continuously rises, and I'm really excited about Sunday night. I'm really excited to see. I wish it was Saturday night, but I mean, I'm really excited to see the crowd that we're going to draw in there on a Sunday night for a night game. We've been playing these games at 2, 3, it's 95 degrees, it's hot, it's sunny. I think this will be a great opportunity for Birmingham to really show their support. But I think the picture that you're looking at there on the screen, we went to Memphis, and we've got a whole crowd that came from Birmingham up to Memphis to support. And our crowd in Memphis was great. I mean, they were loud.
Even with the weather. Yeah,
that's awesome.
We ran out of the tunnel. I thought we were going to get booed, I mean, and we ran out of the tunnel, and we got great support, even in Memphis. So the fans here, the people in the city of Birmingham have been phenomenal. It's been incredible just the way that they've embraced this. This state loves football. It's in the Southeast. And this, excuse me, this is professional sports in Alabama, professional football. And it's really been very well received. We've got a great following. And it's been a lot of fun to watch it grow, and I look forward to it continuing to grow as this thing continues into year 2, 3, and 4. I think it has a chance to be a real mainstay.
Skip Holtz with us, head coach of the Birmingham Stallions. You can catch them against New Orleans on Sunday. That will be on Fox, 7 o'clock Eastern. And, of course, the game as well from the North Division you can catch on NBC and Peacock, 8 o'clock Eastern on Sunday evening. Coach, I'm curious from this perspective with name, image, likeness, and everything that we're seeing in college football. You're a long-time head coach and assistant coach, but head coach at Louisiana Tech, East Carolina, South Florida. But from this angle, you're very connected with coaches that are still in the college game. How draining is it right now versus what it was on the assistants, on the head coaches, just behind the scenes from what you're hearing? Are guys enjoying it as much as they used to even 5 to 10 years ago?
The landscape of college football has changed tremendously, obviously, in the last 5 years when you talk about the NIL and the transfer portal. I think what it's become, we played a game in Memphis this week, and the University of Memphis is hosting a bunch of official visits. I think the hardest thing right now on coaches in the college game is there is no break. There is no time off. You are recruiting 24/7 year round. If you're not on the high school calendar when you can go out in May and spring recruit, and then you can go out in December and January and do home visits, you have that time period that has always been a demanding time for college coaches, but it's ended. You weren't allowed to be on the road outside of that time. There were dead periods. Now all of a sudden you have the transfer portal recruiting, and that doesn't have a calendar. That doesn't have a timeline. And so you're constantly, every day, you're waking up, new players are being thrown into the mix. I mean, it's an exhausting process right now. It's part of what you have to go through to build your roster. If you don't want to get involved in it, then and you want to decide to stick to the old school the way it's always been, you're going to get left. Everybody else, there's a lot of talent that's jumping into that portal. It's happening after the season. It's happening after spring football. You look at what's happened at Colorado. I read an article that Colorado only has like 10 returning players off last year's team.
Yep.
And that's an 85-man roster. I mean, we're dealing with 50. I mean, this has been a whole new experience for me. I brought the team up, and it was like, okay, where's the defense? Somebody go get the other half. It's like, this is it. This is all you got. Well, in college, you've got 85, and to see the turnover that's going on right now, And I know the stories are going to come because right now it's so new. But the stories that haven't been put out are the players that have gotten into the portal and been left. Players that had college scholarships that got out, that wanted to go to another program, that thought the grass was going to be greener elsewhere, and they don't have a choice. And some of these young men I'm going to say, some of these young men don't want to go in the portal, but they're told that they're not going to be renewed. They're not going to be brought back for next year because they're not the caliber, or maybe they think a school thinks that they can get better talent. So some of these players are kind of being pushed out a little bit into the street or into the transfer portal and end up not getting a new home. I don't think that's what the college experience was all about. That's not the part of the game that I loved. Like I said, I love the part of development. I used to love watching a player come in as an 18-year-old freshman and then walk out as a 22, 23-year-old man, and watching him grow up and watching him redshirt and watching him grow as a player, watching him grow fundamentally, watching him get bigger and stronger, watching him grow as a person, watch him grow as a student, to see the pride they have in earning something and walking out of college with a degree. That's not what it's about anymore. And now it's about bigger, faster, stronger, and constantly rolling over your rosters and seeing what you can do to get better. So it's just changed. I think it's certainly a different college football landscape than I walked out of even just 3 years ago. And so I think it's different for sure.
Thank you for the perspective and the depth there, because I know that coaches, no matter where they are thinking about where we're headed with all of this. And thanks for the time today. And I'll say this, like, you were all in on the USFL. You embraced being in the home city, the home crowd, the fan base. And I think the USFL success in large part from year one to year two has to do with the coaches that embraced the overall aspect of everybody's watching, listening, and learning all at the same time. Thank you for the help with our show, specifically from last year. And best of luck as you defend the title. And we'll be watching on Sunday, Coach.
Well, I look forward to doing this again. You guys have always been great. Enjoy visiting with you. Appreciate the coverage and what we're trying to do here. But I've had an awful lot of fun. And giddy up. We'll see everybody Sunday night at 6 o'clock. Come out to Protective Stadium. Support the Stallions.
Thanks, Coach.
Skip Holtz has been our guest. Coming up, an injury from a Price is Right celebration. That's next on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of a Southern legend.
Been a fun show, fast-paced show today. OutKick, hot mic with Hutton and Withrow. Strange story over the weekend, and I have not been able to find clarification on this, Chad. This was Saturday afternoon. My dad saw the story. He goes, because we had one of the Father's Day weekends, or July 4th or something, we drove to St. Louis. And here in Nashville, you're either driving to Atlanta or St. Louis or Cincinnati to watch Major League Baseball. We went to the Cardinals game to switch things up a bit. And
Yeah.
David Freese was coming back. I believe he was with the Pirates at the time. He was coming back through. He got a massive standing ovation from Cardinals fans, who were some of the nicest fans going.
Very good baseball market,
But
St. Louis.
You know, he's got the World Series stardom for the Cardinals back in like 2011, I think,
The
2012.
World Series against the Rangers.
Okay.
He was the hero.
So he has been selected, or was selected, to go into the Cardinals Hall of Fame, the St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame. And then he wrote like this lengthy acknowledgement of the
A manifesto?
No, it wasn't. No, that would have been released.
Still trying to figure out.
No, this lengthy
you write one.
Statement about why he was not going to accept the honor of going into the St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame. Just declining the induction. He cited personal opinion is what he cited. But again, it's lengthy. And he goes, I realize how this is going to come across. I get it. I feel strongly about my decision. I'll understand how people might feel about this. I'll wear it. Thank you for always being there for me. I'm excited to be around the Cardinals as we move forward. So it's not like he's not on the outs with the organization. That was my first thing, because the organization then responded. Bill DeWitt III, the Cardinals president, said he was disappointed in Freese's decision, but ultimately they respect it, and he's welcome around for any alumni function they ever have. But 5 seasons, the fans absolutely adore the guy, and he's declining the option. It's weird. And to each his own, but I mean, he's the World Series MVP for that season.
So
he's the World Series MVP, and he's not going. He's declining the induction into the Hall of Fame for the organization.
And he's more than that. He's from the St. Louis area. He went to Wildwood High School close by, so he was like the hometown kid who grew up a Cardinals fan, who then became the World Series hero in their 2011 World Series championship against the Texas Rangers. Now, his playing time fell off by the 2013 season, and then he was traded after the 2013 season to the Angels. And I don't know if there's still bad blood about that, because the Cardinals did trade him away. And that's how he was no longer a Cardinal.
No, I don't think so, though. I really don't. I think that would have been portrayed better through stories written about this. No one's really putting a reason behind it other than just like personal thoughts on his impact on that season. Again, to each his own. There's more to that, right? There's got to be than just, sorry, fans, I'm not going to accept it.
He does not feel deserving. Is one of the reasons he stated as to not doing it. It's weird. He currently lives in Austin, Texas. Does not live in the St. Louis area, but I'd like to know the rest of the story. Or maybe he's just like Jimmy Butler and he just doesn't like Hall of Fame inductions.
For 3 hours each weekday, Chad, we have a hot mic here on OutKick. Sometimes, though, it's not a great thing to figure out, especially if you're.
We don't want a literal hot mic.
If you're a TV reporter who thinks that you're off air after discussing a murder, report on a murder, and you're heard across your television station because your mic was still on.
In the newsroom, Giselle Hood, WVUA 23 News.
Thanks, Giselle. 3 people, including a child, were shot and killed in a domestic violence incident in Orlando, Florida.
Police say the suspect in the domestic violence incident died in an officer-involved shooting.
No, she says slay because she
did a good job with the report.
Yeah. After rehearsing it, who knows how many times. Just very unfortunate that she's saying slay as the anchors are going through the murder investigation.
Let me say this. Both unfortunate and very fortunate. Because do you know how much worse that could have been?
Yeah, you're right.
Based on what she was saying, how friendly she was with the camera person there, or who she was talking to, or what she was commenting on about the murder of multiple people. If she was saying an off-color joke about it, or if she was joking with someone else, not even about the story.
I don't know if she heard the story. That was the promo coming up. I think she was just talking about her.
Yes, no, that's report. My point. Like, if that is your hot mic moment, I mean, if that's my hot mic moment, I'm like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Because the moment, and we've been around hot mics before, the moment that it happens, immediately your mind races. What were we just talking about? We've done radio shows where I'll get multiple texts saying your mics were on the entire break.
Yeah, during the commercial break.
And I'm thinking, I'm looking at my producer first off and saying, please shut the mics down.
Yeah, what did Chad and I just discuss?
And then Hutton and I are just thinking, oh, how bad was this? Am I still employed? That's my first thought when I hear hot mic. But that girl was just saying she did a good job. She was patting herself on the back by saying she slayed it. I'm good with that. Again, always unfortunate to have a hot mic. Very fortunate that's what was caught on the hot mic for her.
Chad is back from a weekend of pitching in the Coach Pitch softball league with his daughter, where the team is vastly improving in this travel league as they play an age group up based on the time allowed for these teams to travel together in these all-star leagues. Chad, no sign of any elbow or shoulder issues.
No, I started to cramp up a little bit late Saturday. Did not do a good enough job of hydrating. I preach to the girls, start hydrating a day early. I want a gallon of water in you before the day of the tournament when you're playing multiple games in the heat.
It's a lot of water for a 8, 9-year-old.
About inning 4 of game number 1, I'm like, I had to go to someone in my traveling party and say, go get me a sports drink. I need to chug one right now and then start drinking more water because I was dehydrated and started to cramp up a bit. Something happened in this tournament that has not happened to me before. There was a very vocal group of coaches for a team that we played. And I'm all for you being vocal, just not towards me. Leave me out of your being vocal. If you want to yell at your kids and get them hyped and crowds getting into it, I'm all for that. But do not direct it at me.
Oh, you're going to get that more often now. You know why?
Here's the example.
Because you're as the coach, again, I know your competitive nature here. You know the rule book very well, likely better than the opposing coach. And so I think you're going to hear more of this, not less, moving forward.
Well,
because you're going to run circles around whoever's opposite dugout of you.
We
Because
started doing that.
You know the ins and outs better than the umpires.
Well, yes, but here's the problem. It's still the umpire's decision to make.
I know.
So at one point,
They're gonna turn to you, though.
In this tournament, you could have a courtesy runner, a pinch runner once an inning, and it could be anyone. Doesn't have to be the last recorded out. You could put anyone in. We were struggling running the bases. Very close games on Saturday, but struggling running the bases. I wanted to bring in a courtesy runner, and I go to the umpire and I said, I'm going to bring in a courtesy runner. He said, there are no courtesy runners in this tournament. And I don't have the rule book because it's online for the tournament right there. And I just say, okay, I thought that there was. I guess not. Well, then at the end of the game, the umpire comes up to me and says, hey, I was wrong. There's a courtesy runner. I was like, well, thank you, Dow, for telling me that, for clearing that up. The other umpire came over and told me that it was wrong. But here's the incident that happened. This is the incident that was bad.
Before or after the courtesy runner attempt?
Oh, the courtesy runner thing was like in the middle of that was the first game, I think.
Okay.
That I tried. This was the second game. In the second game, we tied the first game, which is hilarious, right? You don't think of ties in softball, but in pool play, it's drop dead. So at the time's up, you get a chance to have the home team bat last. But if it ends in a tie, it ends in a tie. So
because you got to get the games in.
Yes, and we were already an hour behind in this tournament. We didn't start till 4:40. We go into the last inning tied at 3. Our first girl gets up, hits a double, and gets to second. And as she's falling off of second base, she's trying to keep her foot on. And instead of just hitting the ground and staying there, she takes off on a jog away from second and then stops halfway between second and third, gets confused, gets tagged out. If she stays on second, we win the game. 2 ground balls, she scores, game's over. Instead, 2 more ground balls, they're good in the field, they throw us out. Game ends in a tie. Game number 2. All right, get the 2-shot going because I want Hutton's reaction to this live as I tell him this for the first time. So game number 2, we're in a back-and-forth game against a group of very vocal coaches. About midway through the game, we had taken the lead at 4-3, and they're getting very frustrated. Our girl hits one right back up the middle. I am the coach pitcher. I jump and do the splits as the ball goes up. It goes between my leg and clearly hits the mound behind me. Right? I throw it from the mound. I'm in front of the mound.
I know it's coming.
Hits the mound and pops up, and our girl is safe at first. So before I'm about to pitch the next pitch, I'm getting ready to deliver the pitch, and their head coach comes running in and says, hold on. What are we saying over here? What are we saying? To his bench, and looks at the woman that's his assistant coach, and she says, it hit him. Appeal it. It hit him. Talking about me.
Interference.
I turned to her. Granted, time has not been called. Right now, it's just a ruckus, is the way I would refer to this. We have not officially called time to appeal anything. They are just yelling at me that it hit him. I turned and I said, as calmly as I can, I said, I promise it did not hit me. I would
glances
call
like
it,
Aaron Judge looked at the dugout.
No, I call it. Look, and this is 8U softball. I would call it if the ball hit me. I said 2 things. 1, I would call it on myself. 2, I'm 6'3", 225 pounds. If the ball hits me, it's going to move. Here's how physics works. You would see the ball redirect before it hit the mound if it hit me. No, it did not hit me. And then the parents get involved. Oh, no, it hit him. This was the response to me.
First, this is 8U. Second,
here's
how physics works.
Me calmly telling them it did not hit me led to them just saying, oh, no, it hit him. It hit him. But whatever, it hit him. Whatever. So I start playing. Well, then our parents start yelling back at them saying, he is going to call a foul on himself. We've seen it happen before. Would not happen. Goes on. They calm down. We get in the last inning, down 5-4, and there's 7 minutes left. And I looked at my assistant coaches and said, this jackass coach, I guarantee you, is about to play stall ball. Because he knows
to start the next inning.
He is the home team.
Yeah.
And he knows they can't start an inning. So I think we started 4.5, 5 minutes. And this was a low-scoring game. We were getting them out pretty quickly, right? So we thought we'd have a good chance at batting again. Hutton, he goes up there. First off, his first batter comes out, sends her back in to get a different bat and batting gloves on to stall there. Comes back in, tells every batter, we watch him do it. Take the first 3 pitches. They get 5. Not only is he taking his time to throw the first 3 pitches, Hutton, he is throwing it over our poor 7-year-old catcher and past her on the ground where she can't stop it to save time. So it's going to the backstop slowly. Every time. She's having to get up, run to the backstop, throw it back to him, and he's still taking his time. So this, I don't say a word. I just kind of duck my head like, oh, my gosh, this is actually happening. This guy's doing this to win a pool play game in an 8U softball game.
These guys feel threatened.
So
you know the rule book way too well.
Our parents are kind of
you.
moaning and groaning like this is real Bush League. Then he just looks at his watch at one point and stands on the mound. I wish I could just do 30 seconds right now to show you how long it is. For 30 seconds until it ran out, and then just toss the ball on the ground because he was looking at the exact time on his clock and just didn't throw a pitch for 30 seconds.
Did you shake his hand after
to end the game? Yes, I shook his hand. Good job, good job, good job. Now, my assistant coach started mouthing with him and said, hey, for the record, it's supposed to be about the girls playing and not the coaches, so don't do that again. His response was, you would have done the same thing. And the one thing I said back to the guy was, I promise you I would not have done the same thing. And Hutton, I prayed that we'd play them the next day. We didn't.
Oh.
Because I wanted to get in the same exact situation, up 1 run late, and pitch it straight out and turn and say, told you I wouldn't do the same thing. Told you I wouldn't do it. And so I could play it fair all the way through. Ridiculous.
On Father's Day.
That was my weekend. That was my Father's Day.
On Father's Day.
You know what I did on Father's Day? I was a great example to my players on how to play the game.
And this guy is bragging today. His Father's Day got a victory.
That dude got whipped by our A team from Mount Juliet, from our better team in our league. So I was happy that went on to happen.
Year.
Yeah.
We're back at it tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern for Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick Network.